Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm glad that you guys can join us short notice. I know I didn't make an announcement or anything. However, this will be what we will be streaming next week because it is a holiday week, right? Towards the end of the week, usually Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the rest of the weekend you're off. But I wanted to go ahead and interview Angie and do the scheduling, make it easier for her and everyone else to be here. So we will be interviewing Angie, Matthew Baker's mom, as well as Kalyn, and they will all introduce themselves. So I wanted to let you guys know that. And hang on, I'm about to add them. Hi,
Hi.
ladies.
Hey.
So you ladies can introduce yourself in however for the listening audience, and then we'll go into the story. But before we do that, I wanted to briefly talk about today's acquittal. And I think it's very relevant with what you're dealing with, Angie. So I'll leave the floor open to whoever'd like to go first.
Go ahead, Kaylin.
Well, hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Kalyn Womack. I'm a writer at Honeysuckle Magazine. I've been interning with them since about June. And actually, towards the end of my internship, I was handed this information about Matthew Baker, and my editor, Jamie, asked me to take the story. So I just took it because obviously, because you're interested in the story is the same reason that I was interested in the story as well. So, yes, and on today's acquittal, I can't say I was surprised by the outcome. It seems as though everyone was kind of in the same headspace that there was a greater likelihood that Kyle would not be found guilty of any of his charges. So it's disheartening because obviously there's a lot of people who are hurt by this, and I can't imagine what the families of the people who lost their family members due to his hand are feeling right now. But definitely a lot of emotions. I wonder what'll happen like tonight or this weekend in regards to a response. And I just hope that regardless to anything that happens, that everyone is safe.
I agree. Angie.
Yes. Hey, thank you for having me, Anna. And
Of
I do
course.
apologize for the late response and getting back with you. It's been a crazy 2 weeks.
No, it's okay. It's understandable. It's
Yeah.
understandable. Um,
I
how do
will
you go ahead?
with what Kaylin was saying I'm not surprised at the verdict either, but I was kind of shocked with just recently with all the situation with George Floyd and how everything went down with that. I was really kind of thinking, are y'all really about to are you really doing this? And then it is very disheartening because I've uh, it's frustrating. It makes me angry. I don't really want to say what my comments was, but it, I don't understand it. I can't wrap my brain around how this justice system is, period. When you have so many people that clearly don't have any evidence to them, and this boy stated what he did, even went to a different whole state. Nobody asked you to come and go anywhere. And
Mhm.
you go in there with an assault rifle and just shoot up. And I heard his testimony on the radio one morning on my way to work, and I'm like, "Are you serious? You just told these people what you did." Oh, because some states have that stand your ground law. That was okay. Like, first of all, that doesn't even qualify you to do even stand your ground law because did nobody ask you to take your ass across the other state? Period.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
sorry.
No,
It
no, no,
just
no.
really
You're right.
frustrates me.
Yeah. Um, I had to go live for me myself. I normally don't do lives unless I'm airing. I just don't anymore. But I went live and I'm like, because my first reaction, I literally got goosebumps, but I was angry. But then I took a deep breath and I said, are we really surprised? Are we really surprised? Like I was just at a loss for words. And it's hard for me to be at a loss for words. Like I normally have something to say, you know? And I was just like, wow. I mean, because guilty in some way, like there had to be something. And I'm like, acquittal? Really? You know, which leads me now to ask you, Angie, what is Matthew's story? You guys aren't going to believe this because it just goes to show the difference in the justice system. Because I saw a lot of posts and I don't comment, right? I keep out of the okey doke, like I call it. I'm not going to argue with anybody. But don't sit here and tell me that I'll use my son, Nathaniel, would have had the same treatment had he done the same thing with his disability and all. That wasn't going to happen. Okay. If lucky, he would have made it out alive because my son is quite dark. My Puerto Rican chocolate baby, who I love to pieces. You know, you met him, Angie. That's my sweetheart. And I just could not even imagine turning around and watching my son go through the same thing and being treated, if he was even alive at the end of that, being treated good. So now I'll let you tell Matthew's story.
Oh, I'm gonna try to do this without crying. I
If you
can't
need me to
promise
butt in,
it.
just let me know.
Most definitely. Matthew is Matthew's being charged with multiple charges. When he first was arrested, he was only charged with 13 charges. They have him charged with now 30 charges, and that came after he refused to sign a plea. He's being accused of, in the state of Georgia, there's accessory law, and they're trying to say that he basically is accessory to a murder of 4 white kids, and my son is biracial. Um, in the way the law states, there's nothing in that under that law that will prove that he had any knowledge of what was going to happen that night. Let the news media tell it. This is how they told the story, and this is why now, why I'm trying to get the true story out, because they have twisted it all up and made it something that it's not, the way it wasn't even. So there was a bonfire that him and there was uh 4 of the people that was invited to: Brooke, Kayla, and Jacob Williams. Um, they were invited to that. They didn't plan it. They didn't coax it with anybody. None of that stuff. So that's one, and I have to say it like that because of how the news media has put it out there. Um, when they got to the party, they wasn't there 15 minutes, and they were asked to leave because somebody there at the party didn't like Brooke, so they left. When they came back, the Brooke and Kayla brought Matthew and Jacob Williams back to my house, and they stayed there for, well, Brooke and Kayla left, but Matthew and Jacob Williams stayed there for hours. Like I was there with them the whole entire time. The news media has made it seem like they went to the bonfire and then they left and came back, and Matthew and Jacob Koski is the one that has admitted to shooting and killing all 4 of them. Um, They made it. The news media said that Mathew was his accomplice, that he provided him the guns, that they went into the house and just started open fire and shooting in the house and all this other stuff. That's not how it happened. Mathew did not provide Koski the guns. And that leads me to say this now. There's no evidence, none, no evidence at all on Mathew. There's no gunpowder residue. There's no fingerprints on a gun anywhere. There's no clothes that was found with any blood on it. There was nothing that would insinuate that he had any intentions on accusing murdering these kids. There's nothing saying that he did, none of that stuff. And Caitlin, this is where I definitely would like for you to chime in, because this girl right here, as Demita says, both her and Demita have been true blessings to this case. Demita says Kalyn has ebonic ears, and she does, and she's so smart. And I thank God for both of them, because they're really helping me a lot. I can understand it a whole lot of what's going on. It's sad, because I don't understand how the justice system can do this to not just my son, but thousands of people. Like, Demita came out with a number, and I'm going to let Kalyn chime in, but I was talking to Demita the other day, and she can't be on here with us tonight. But she said that the records or whatever, who the state came out with a number of people, it's like 500 something thousand people that are falsely incarcerated. Well, if, like she said, if they know a number of those people, then that means you know their name. And if you know their name, why you can't let them out? Like, I just can't wrap my brain around it. And I will say this too. Now I got to correct the media, and of course they go by whatever the detectives say and stuff like that. But they had a little news clipping that came on at the 12 o'clock news, which is something nobody ever watches, so they wouldn't have seen it. But at Koski's preliminary hearing, they had said that later on in investigation, they realized that Mathew didn't provide Koski the guns, that Koski stole them from the house. So my question is, if you know that Mathew didn't steal the guns, why are you still trying to charge him with murder? If he didn't know anything about it, why are you still trying to charge him with murder? We've got multiple emails, JPay messages from Koski stating that he didn't even know that he was going to do it. How did Mathew know that he was going to do it if he didn't know what was going on? And since day one, all this stuff is on. Anybody that's in Georgia, and if you're not in Georgia, you can look it up on the news, on YouTube, whatever. You type in Channel 2 or Fox 5, Channel 11, all those news stations or whatever, and you can type in Jacob Cole Koski, or you can type in Mathew Baker. But if you type in Jacob Koski, you'll see a news clipping of his preliminary hearing, where he had an outburst in court and said that he never said that Mathew was his accomplice after the detective said that he was. They had to shut the courtroom down and get the news media out because he flipped out in court. Okay, Kalyn.
Angie, I wanted to ask you a question briefly, because I want to clarify something. And I know sometimes as a mom, right, it's really hard to go through this step by step, so that the audience understands how you've ended up here. Now with Koski, so he switched his story around. Now it does matter, right? It does, especially in the county that you're at. I'm not sure if you'd like to share what county you guys live in, but you can't, it's one of those counties. It's just one of those counties that color matters. Okay. The neighboring county, Clayton County, which was, if anybody remembers, the county that made Georgia blue back in November, would have probably been maybe a lot different with the same scenario. I believe so. I believe so, just down the street. If, do you think, right? Because we've established he has mental issues. And I think you should go a little bit into that. But if you want, we can have Kalyn, after, Kalyn says what she's going to say, go into who Koski is, what Koski done since he's been incarcerated, so that people see who Mathew and Koski really are, if that makes sense. So I can leave it up to you if you'd like to answer that now, if you'd like Kalyn to answer, and then we'll go back to that question.
Go ahead, Kalyn. I'll answer after. Well, everything you said is true. Yes, yes, yes. Uh, we don't anymore, but we did live in Henry County, so I don't have a problem with letting everybody know, because it's not there's it. I haven't personally got any death threats, but Demita has. And when all this first happened, I've seen so many negative comments on social media, which that's just how people are anyways. But my thing is, I say, if you wasn't there, you don't know the whole story. You can't listen to everything that the media says, because they lie. They do it just to hype it up, to get ratings. That's how they make their money, is how many people will view their shows and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter what the details are at first when it all happens. The most important part was there was 4 victims that lost their lives for no apparent reason. Let's give them some kind of respect and stop, being negative on social media and stuff like that, because their parents have to read this stuff. Their parents have to see this. Their parents have to constantly relive that same day all the time, over and over and over and over and over. And it just like that's what makes me upset about the media. Now, Kalyn is a journalist and media is two different things. It is just two different days, two different things. But I'll comment on Koski after Kalyn.
Yeah, I actually was gonna go off of your question to Miss Angie and kind of clear up the dynamic of how these two people ended up in the same place. And this is all according to the facts of the story that I've gathered from Mathew, from Angelia, from his sister, from Jacob himself. One thing that I think needs to be brought to full attention is that not only did Jacob Koski plead guilty to all of the charges, but he also pled guilty on the basis of being mentally ill. And there's a whole article and transcript from that court case where the reporter in the article says exactly what the basis was to determine how mentally ill he was and how he got to that point. And also based on the fact that Jacob told me that he didn't know, like, once the moment came that he was going to pull the trigger, he wasn't in his right mind. That kind of says enough about who he is. It's also a fact that he was released early from the mental health hospital a few weeks, I believe, before the incident happened, and he wasn't on any medication. And there are records of him being given medication while in the hospital, and it wasn't working. And I don't mean in any way to build a stigma or push the stigma around schizophrenia, because a lot of people like to, make it out to seem like it's this, crazy person thing. But I do think that mental illness really does need to be taken into account, especially when it's something as severe as schizophrenia, because he even said in a previous hearing that he heard voices telling him to do things. So it's not unlikely that a person who is diagnosed and untreated might escalate to a violent type of behavior, which unfortunately could result in someone getting fatally killed, or like fatally injured or killed. And Mathew didn't know Koski that well. A lot of the media, when I was going to look at the stories and try to figure out what was going on, a lot of them said that they were friends. Both of them denied being friends to each other. They met each other 2 days before the party happened. Mathew also did not want to, and he told me, and per his sister's account, he did not want to go back to the house to go get him because he was following his mother's orders. His mom told him, be at the house at this time, don't leave this house after you come back home. And he wanted to obey her orders. And it was just kind of like, you know, you're in the moment, you're sitting there with your friends, and it just seemed like he was like, okay. He was under the impression that he was just going to go pick him up and take him home. And also his sister said the same thing. He told me before he left, he came in my door and said, I'm just going to go pick up somebody and take them home. I'll be right back. So this kind of conspiracy, which essentially it is, that, oh, the two of them conspired together to go grab weapons and come back to the house and all of this other stuff, like, based on the fact that they really didn't know each other, doesn't make any sense. And then also the theory about Mathew giving Jacob the guns was also obviously debunked because they had a witness testify in the last motion hearing that she took major case prints on Mathew. She took gun residue tests on him and didn't find any matches. So where was the gun in his hand? There's also Jacob's initial testimony where he said that he had both guns. He stole both of them himself. And he said that when he asked Mathew to come back to the house, he put one in Mathew's hand just to hold so that he could take it from him and fire more rounds. Mathew denies holding a gun. And that second magical gun has not been recovered for the past 5 years that this case has been being investigated. They only found the one. I think it was either the rifle or the handgun that Jacob ended up stashing into a river and told the police where it was to go find it. So yes, these two people, like that dynamic, just it's hard to think that these two people randomly got together and decided, let's just go shoot up a house. And also his interrogation tape with Detective LaCroix, or now Sergeant LaCroix. When you heard the audio in the motion hearing, you heard Mathew's voice and he was shaking, he was crying. It really seemed like he was trying to recall something traumatic that happened in front of him. And it was kind of like you just wanted everyone in the court to kind of just be in Mathew's shoes for a second, because everyone's kind of trying to antagonize him by saying, well, why didn't you call the cops? Why didn't you tell him to stop shooting? Why didn't you do anything? And he's trying to explain in the interrogation tape that he's standing in front of someone. I mean, yes, he's standing in front of someone, probably less than 10 feet, who has two guns on them. And he just saw them open fire on someone. He said as soon as he walked up to the house, he was under the impression that he would have to go help Jacob because Jacob said that he was in danger, that he was about to go get jumped by a few people. And he said in his interrogation tape to Sergeant LaCroix that he was under the impression that they would end up getting in like some type of fist fight outside of the house. So when he walked up to the house, he was like, where are the people? And Jacob just said, that's just not what's going to happen. And he just said, come on. So they walk up to the house, and Mathew said as soon as Jacob got through the front door, he shot someone point blank range. If Mathew was that close to him, there would have to be some type of blood residue on his clothes. There was nothing. They said in court that they didn't recover anything from him. So now you have Mathew standing there, probably at the top of the steps of the house, or inside of the house, and he's watching this person that he doesn't really know that well open fire on a whole bunch of other people. And it's kind of like, what would you do in that situation? Jacob also threatened him twice that night that if he said anything to the police or to anyone, that he would shoot him. So, I mean, after you see someone open fire on 4 people, you would kind of believe that they would also kill you too. And then he also explained that the reason he didn't call the police when he got home was because where they ended up driving Jacob after they got picked up from the house wasn't too far from his own home, and Jacob knew where he lived. So, I mean, Matthew's younger sister and a newborn child were in the house that night when he got back home. So he was afraid that if he said anything, and that if at any time Jacob found out that he said anything, he would come to his house and, basically follow up on his word. So, yes, that is pretty much the story. There's a whole bunch of other odd overlappings, because I'm positive you probably have a couple of questions in a few areas of this. But yes, Jacob, right now, he's pled guilty to all of the charges on the basis of mentally ill, but somehow Matthew is charged with double that of Jacob.
And I will say, to chime in on what Kalyn just said
Mm-hmm.
about Matthew's statement. When they arrested Matthew, I was so angry, and I just, like, my body just went into shock. I wasn't crying. I was pissed because this I'm Matthew is. I always say Matthew's a good kid. Matthew is an awesome kid. He is a very loving kid. He would give you, if he didn't have anything but $1, he'd split that dollar in half with you to make sure you had something. He's always just been like, kids love him, dogs love him, people love him, old people love him. You know what I'm saying? This kid is 24 years old and still will give me a kiss in front of anybody, and it doesn't matter that his homeboys are standing around or whatever. He'll tell you in a minute, I love my mama. And there's not too many kids that are that age that really want to, give their mama hugs and kisses and, anything like that. When we were able to go to see him at the jail, he would, we had to see him through the glass, and he would always turn his cheek and give me a kiss. And he's in jail. I mean, and you're in jail with hard criminals, people like that. I mean, he did not care. The night that he got arrested, first thing that came out of my mouth was, I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yes, Mom, I'm okay." And I was like, "I don't know what's going on." I was like, "But I know you didn't do anything. I know you're innocent." I was like, "I know it. I know my kids. I know what my kids are capable of doing. And I know this is not, I don't know what they got going on, but I know this is not true." And he told me, he said, "Mama, he'll kill you too." So when he told me that, I knew that it was something serious and that he was really, really scared. The next day, you could look, the picture that they have posted all over social media and stuff like that. You can look at his eyes and you can tell that he was scared to death. A gun speaks for itself. You don't. It doesn't matter what somebody tells you to do. If they have a gun pointing at you, you're going to do it unless you want to die. If you want to die, then yeah, you're not going to do anything they ask you to do. Only far and few are there some brave people that you could go to a store and rob a store, and that person behind there is going to mash that button first, and they might be, if they hope that they're quick enough to pull their gun, if they got one, to shoot the person that's trying to rob them. But if not, they're going to die because they're trying to save themselves and get the person that's trying to rob the store, or they're just going to go ahead and do whatever they tell them to do. You see it all the time, everywhere. Carjackings. What are you going to do? You can have my car. I'm about to get out.
Yeah.
You can have it. You ain't even going to tell me to get out. Here you go. Go. Only time you see people are going to argue with you about that is on movies. That gun talks for everything. So, with that being said, though, Matthew did not act in any way toward, from what the detective said, that would make him guilty of any of these charges that they're trying to give him. Because even though the gun, Koski pointed a gun at him and told him if he said anything, he'd kill him too or whatever. But That is the only thing that they can find Matthew guilty of, is not calling and reporting the crime because he was scared for his life. That is it. And I don't think that that's a law.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I have a lot of questions because I'm sure the audience has. And if you guys have questions about anything, you guys feel free to call 321-252-8084. If not, you guys can write them down the feed and I will gladly post them and I'll read them out so that you guys, so that Angie has a fair, or Kalyn, opportunity, or both, to answer any of your questions. Okay, so let's go back to the party. They went to a party, a group of folks went to a party. They stayed there for 15 minutes. Uh, one of the girls was not liked, so they were asked to leave. Everybody leaves. Koski calls, well, allegedly, right? From what, because Koski's story's changed a lot of times, just so that I have that right. Is that correct?
No, his story hasn't really changed at all. It's
Okay.
the news media that has made it seem like it has changed.
Okay.
They're the ones that he has been on point.
The
He
whole.
didn't call anybody. He texted Brooke and said, "Hey, can you come pick me up?"
Oh, so that's interesting. Okay, so he texts Brooke. He tells Brooke, okay, can you come pick me up? So who's driving? Matthew's driving?
No,
Oh,
Matthew didn't have a car and Matthew did not have a phone. It was Kayla's car and Kayla drove there.
okay, so Kayla drove over there and Matthew gets out of the car because he wasn't coming outside.
The,
No.
the instructions
There's no.
were that Brooke said, Brooke told Kayla that Costa said, come pick me up and park at the end of the driveway.
Mhm.
Per Kayla, she said that she thought that the only reason why they had to park at the end of the driveway because prior to them being at the party earlier, she assumed that they wasn't wanted in the driveway.
Okay.
So none of them knew what was going on.
So no
And
one knew anything. They're just going back to go. Okay, I see. I
yeah,
see.
they're just going back to pick him. They're just going back to pick Koski up because he was telling Brooke that he was getting jumped by 6 people. So how I figured that up to be is that's where his schizophrenia
Kick.
episode came in
Mhm.
because it was 4 victims and then it was him and his sister, or it was 4 victims and then it may have been 1 or 2 other people there, and he was including them and the 4 victims and the 6 people. So I don't think that him, and here's the sad part, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because the way this court system is doing, they're not going to tell them the truth. And that's what pisses me off even more, that these victims' families don't know the truth of what happened, but they keep looking at my son because he's the black kid and make it seem like, oh yeah, he was his accomplice, he did this, he did that, and both of them should burn in hell, blah 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 blah. No, Koski is sick and has, when he went and did his plea. Now, I've never met this boy before ever in my life. Never. I've never seen him other than on TV, none of that stuff, because him and Matthew did not know each other.
Well, that was
I
going to
had,
be the next question.
yeah, I had, okay, so how Matthew, you want to know how they met? Is
Yeah.
that what you
So
asked?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. You can continue with what you were saying so that they don't get lost. But I know that when like when I'm listening to something, I kind of have. So I try to pick them up so that the audience knows. They get them all
Right.
on point. So, and Kaylin, you can
Well,
feel free to step on in as you please as well.
yeah. So, okay, so when Koski went to his plea hearing, um, they did make him plea mentally insane. Um, and that's on channel 11 too as well. So if anybody, 11 Alive News, if anybody wants to see the plea hearing, they can go on there, they can watch it. They can. It's like 48 minutes long, so they can watch the whole thing if anybody wants to follow the case. But they brought out boxes, huge boxes of medical records ever since he was 3 years old. He has always battled with some type of mental illness. They never could figure out what it was exactly that he was battling with for years until I guess recently or whatever. Um, One of the things that the lawyer was saying that when he was younger, that his parents said that for some reason, and when he was like 3 and 4 years old, he would just bang his head on the wall, and they never knew why he would bang his head on the wall. And that just led me to know. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist or nothing, but I've read up on mental health because I was taking it when I was in college. We had to learn that was things that we had to learn in childhood development or whatever. But that's a sign of schizophrenia right there. I don't know why, and why the doctors couldn't pinpoint it out prior to this. When he left the mental hospital, they did prescribe him medicine, but they did not give him any. He did not have. He was not on any type of medicine when he left that hospital, and he should have been. And he told them before he left, supposedly, that if they didn't put him on some medicine, he felt like he was going to kill somebody. Okay, now to the point of how Matthew and him met each other. So, Koski's brother, I had to think for a minute. Koski's brother is married to a girl. I can't remember her name right now for some reason. But the girl that he's married to is one of Matthew's friend's sister, and that's how they met each other. So Koski got out. He didn't never go around them or whatever, but just one day he happened to pop up, I guess, because his brother was at the girlfriend's house or the wife's house, whatever she is, and that's where Matthew's friend Austin was at. And he said something about playing basketball, and that's how he ended up coming and meeting with Mathew or whatever.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot. That's a whole lot. And I'd like to add to that, medicine is just, and I think I was talking to you about this the other day, Angie, if not, it was somebody else. It's just that the study. So they guess, they don't know, right? I've seen cases where people did the same thing, head banging, and truthfully, they had epilepsy was one of the things, epilepsy in their background. And I'm very familiar with mental health because I do have medical training as well as a special needs son who also has epilepsy. Another thing that happens is a lot of times a tumor in areas where they have no idea. So we've also got to think, we don't know his background and what type of help was there. And I'm not, Angie, please, I'm not justifying anything. I don't want you to mistake me, but it's baffling to me, right? That all of a sudden we got a diagnosis, and I'm assuming right when all of this took place, because they couldn't figure out anything. Maybe and we'll go why. We'll answer why later. I believe they should make sure that there's not another situation going on with him to have it caused all of this. Because I think that even when you said that he saw 6 people there that were trying to jump him, it's not that they lie. It's not that they tell anything. It's mental health. That's the sad part about it. They truly believe this. So in no way am I sitting here saying anything negative, because mental health is serious. Mental health is real. And this is what happens when someone's not treated accordingly, right? For their mental health. Now, when you mentioned his sister was there, and he was there. So that leaves them two at the house. The house was empty with pretty much people that have been murdered execution style, correct?
Yes. Now how they were killed execution style? No, they was not. No, they was not. He just opened fire, and however they were standing, they just dropped like that. That's just they were not. He did not tell. He did not. I mean, they. Well, okay. You know what? Let me correct myself because I have to be careful how I say that. Yes, some of them were shot in the back of the head, and some of them were shot in their back because he shot three of them twice. So when you say execution style, I'm thinking they're made to lay on the ground. They're made to be shot in the back of the head or in their back, and stuff like that. But he did. They were all shot in the head, and then they were all shot in their back and chest area. Each one of them was shot a different way. So, um, the people there at the house was just the four victims, and it was just him and his sister. Yes, that was it. Now I will
There
say
was
this.
also another witness who was who survived it too. Yeah, there was okay, so it was the
I
four
forgot about him.
victims. Jacob Koski, his sister was hiding. She was out smoking a cigarette on the back porch. When he entered the house, he told her to leave. This is what he told Sergeant LaCroix. He told Sergeant LaCroix that when he entered the house, he saw his sister and told her to leave. So, per her phone call to the police, which I've listened to that night of the incident, she told the police that she was outside smoking a cigarette on the back porch and she started hearing gunfire. She ran and hid behind a bush, and she said that she couldn't identify who was inside and that she might have seen two white males. There was another anonymous witness who was hiding in one of the rooms in the house. It's unclear where he was hiding, whether he was under the bed, whether he was on top of the bed. There's been a lot of different versions of exactly how he was hiding, but he was there. And he said that he saw two people walk in. He identified Jacob, and he also identified him through a given lineup of people. He pointed out Jacob. He saw a second person who was unarmed, and he was not given a lineup to identify Mathew. But somehow later in his discussion with Sergeant LaCroix, he ended up identifying Mathew as the second person. And he heard voices, he heard the shooting, and he said that he saw the two figures go and check the house for other victims. Where that kind of gets confusing is that Jacob said that in one of his hearings that if he knew that there was another person in the house, he would have killed them. So it's unclear. This piece of information where Jacob and Mathew search the house, or Jacob tells Mathew to search the house for other people, is unclear how that actually happened, or if it actually did happen, because of based off of what Jacob said, and also a discrepancy between what he said and what the witness testified as well.
Now, okay. Okay, I'm trying to find the right wording. I don't want to. So, Angie, as you know, I have my human justice organization along with this that I do. And one thing that I see a lot in these cases is when there's more than one witness, similar to what she said, all of a sudden they saw this and that, but it contradicts everything, everybody. It's almost like it's planted there, to say it that way, right? I want to watch my words, and this is allegedly, right? I don't need any law enforcement coming after me, allegedly, right? So it's more than one case that I have in particular that this has happened with. What is is that what you ladies believe happened here with that, as you would say, witness? how do you see something but not? And then how do we go from not knowing who it was in the lineup to all of a sudden pointing so and so out?
I'm actually not sure because I have some confusion around both the witness testimony and also the sister's testimony, because the sister said on the phone call that she didn't know who was in the house. Later, she identified to Sergeant LaCroix that she heard her brother's voice, which, okay, solid. If you think about it, maybe you can remember your brother's voice if you think back to that moment. But then she also said if she had to guess who the second person was, she would assume that it would be Mathew. My confusion with that is that if the two aren't friends, how can you assume automatically right off the bat that the second person in the house would be Mathew? That's my only question. Not sure if I'll get an actual answer to it, but that's where my confusion comes with that. And my confusion with the witness is, I mean, on the stand, Sergeant LaCroix said that he was that he pulled his hoodie over his head and he like zipped it like that. So he was like looking through this little hole here, and that he saw Mathew and he couldn't identify the second person. And I'm also, it is confusing as to why he would identify Mathew as the second person without a lineup for that second figure, only given a lineup of Jacob. So I'm actually not sure at all what I believe or who I believe in that situation, because I'm really trying to build this follow-up report with as much factual information as possible, but it's really hard with this case because you have to include all the other stories along with it to kind of at least put the confusion out there so that everyone knows like there are several versions of what happened.
Absolutely. And see, which there's so much that I want to ask, which, I ask, and I'm going to ask. And, okay. So I got to find the right wording, right? Because we don't want people taking it the wrong way, right? Especially with such a divided country right now, right? My question to you is, so the second person couldn't have been the sibling that was there at the house at the time? It had to be, because right after I ask about the sibling, right, I'm going to ask, was Mathew the only person of color in the group?
Yes. The boy that was under the bed, I'm glad that Kalyn brought that up because I really forgot all about that boy. I don't know why I forgot. I guess because his testimony is booty. But the news media came out, and I cannot find that clipping anywhere to be able to. I wanted to give it to Kalyn, but it was on the news media, and you could hear his voice in the background when they do like the breaking live news and all the other stuff. They said they had a anonymous witness or whatever it was. Well, his first initial statement, and I wish I could find it so that I can show his attorney so they can listen to it and Kalyn can see it, because the boy changed the story twice. So the first time on national TV, he said that he was hiding under the bed. And he said that when he was hiding under the bed, all he saw was somebody. He never said what the person looked like. He never said the person had on a hoodie. And that was like right after all this happened. So your brain is fresh. You'll know what you're going to say. Then, everything just comes out because you're already in shock because you don't even know what's going on. First of all, let me back up. Why is this other person, his name is Dalton, why is he even hiding under the bed at a bonfire when that's not even his house? Hey, Demita, that's not even his house. He was there for a bonfire, but because he said he was going to take a nap because he had to go to work the next day. First of all, that's not even your house to be taking a nap at. So that story didn't make no sense to me either. Yes, and I forgot about that. The next thing is you were hiding under the bed, And you said you saw somebody go to the room on the left, the room on the right, and the room you're in. Okay, well, if somebody really is looking for you to make sure ain't nobody else in the house, first thing they're going to do is they're going to come in there and they're going to actually look around in the room. Okay, if you're sitting on top of the bed, they're going to see you laying on top of the bed. Then you would have been dead. Well, he told Detective LaCroix that he was laying on top of the bed, hiding under some covers with a hoodie pulled up over his face. Okay, well, if somebody goes into a room, first you're going to see somebody laying on the bed. Second, if you are actually looking and you look under the bed, first thing you're going to do is put your hand on the bed because you want to brace yourself to look under the bed. If that was the case, then you would have been seen and you would have been shot and killed. But you wasn't. So you really did not see anybody clearly to even state who that person was or what they was wearing. And if you got the hoodie pulled all over your face like this, how are you even going to know what that other person is wearing? Whether it's a black hoodie, a sweatshirt, or whatever the situation is, how are you going to be able to see that? You can't, because you're really not even paying attention. Because first thing, if I hear gunshots, I'm going to be scared as hell. I'm getting the farthest way as I can, and I'm not even going to pull a hoodie over my damn head. I'll probably have my big ass in the closet just so they can't come in there and see me, find me somewhere. I'm not fixing to stay nowhere around that. This boy, I've looked him up. I did a lot of research before I met Kalyn and Demita. I looked this boy up. He's been in a lot of trouble. He has some gang activity charges on him, some theft charges on him. He has a criminal background. Back to the statement that Kalyn was saying when the sister called 911. On the 911 tape, I've heard both of them. I've heard it when Koski called in, and I've heard it when Jude called in. Jude said she named her brother on the actual 911 call. She said that her brother was the shooter. But then after the police got there, that's when she changed the story and said that it was two white males, and that if she had to guess, it would be Mathew Baker that he was with. And that was after the fact.
I'm sorry, I've seen Matthew's picture. They could have at least said Latino, black. Really? Really? Like, I've seen his picture, and I must say, Matthew's a very good-looking young man. It's a shame he's had to endure this. But really? So, have you had, or does the attorney have access to the 911 calls? Is this something that's going to be brought up?
I don't want to talk about them right now, Anna. Okay. I really don't, because I really don't know what their approach is. And I didn't mean to say that disrespectfully, but it's just because that just sounded kind of rude the way I said it. I feel like we need new attorneys. I'm just going to put it out there. I really do. That's the only reason why the last time we went to court, I had a Zoom meeting with them that Friday. They spent almost what was it, Kalyn, 45 minutes to an hour arguing with me and really kind of protecting the DA versus everything I'm talking to you about my son. Like, at the bottom line, I don't care. They said I make it difficult for them to work with me. Why do I make it difficult for you to work with me? Because I'm speaking out about every chance I get about my son's case. This is my child. I gave birth to him.
Absolutely.
I'm the one that carried him for 9 months, not you. And now you want me to trust you with his life in your hands? And if I have a question that I want to know, and you get an attitude with me, yeah, bitch, I'm gonna get an attitude right back with you. Definitely. And I'm gonna put you in check, because if I don't understand something, I need you to clarify to me, because none of this whole entire case makes any sense. When Kalyn first started reading all this stuff, it was mind-boggling and confusing to her, because there were so many multiple different stories. When Demita first took the case, she kept asking me for the
Discovery.
Um, yeah, discovery packet. And I would ask them for it, and it went on months and months and months. They would never give me the discovery packet. They kept saying they were moving. They moved to a new office. They haven't got this. They ain't got unpacked. They ain't got all this other stuff. So finally, I just screenshotted an email and sent it to Demita because I wanted her to know that I'm doing what you're asking me to do, but they're the ones that's not wanting to give it to me. They don't want me to have it. They didn't want me to have it from the get go. They don't even want to talk to me, period. But they have no choice but to talk to me because Mathew said, that's my mom. You're going to talk to her because my mom is, if not, my mom's going to be worried. She wants to know what's going on. She wants to know I'm okay, blah, 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 whatever. But if they didn't have to, because Mathew tells them to talk to me, they wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't tell me nothing. And you know what? The sad thing about it is, which I understand how the law works because of that. But at the same time, when he first was arrested, he was 19 years old. At 19 years old, you don't think you're not a complete adult. You don't, and especially if you've never been in trouble with the law. That's another thing. Mathew don't have any felonies. Mathew is the only person out of this whole case between Koski, his sister, the supposedly eyewitness, that does not have a felony on him. And I don't think you just wake up one day and be like, oh, well, I've got a clean slate. I think I'm just going to be a murderer today. I just don't think that happens.
Absolutely. Now, so back to that question. Sister was in the house. She doesn't get an accessory charge, but you're saying that Mathew does. Am I understanding that correctly for the listening audience?
Yes, and she's not the only one who doesn't have an accessory charge. It's also the other three people who were in the car waiting for Mathew and Jacob to get to the car to then drive Jacob across county lines. And I guess because they didn't know what happened, and because through word of mouth, I haven't confirmed it with any of them yet, any of the three yet. And I can imagine I'll have a lot of trouble trying to get in contact with them too. But through word of mouth, through what Angie understands from when she had correspondence with them, the two of them, Jacob Koski and Mathew, were pretty much silent in the car. And imaginably for two different reasons. Mathew also said that he was like sick to his stomach, scared, felt like he was having a heart attack sitting in that car next to a person who just ruthlessly killed four people in front of him. And Koski just didn't want to talk because he just didn't want to talk. And it didn't seem like he said anything until after he got out of the car and apparently said what happened before he just walked off, wherever he ended up walking off to. But yes, the other people
when they
who
were when they were on the he didn't talk, but he did ask to use he asked to use Kayla or Brooke's phone, one of them. And something he said, I've got to call my sister and let her know everything's gonna be okay. What that meant, I don't know. And then they still were asking questions. Kayla was kept, saying like, what's going on, whatever. And when they got, and he kept giving them directions of where they needed to go, how he wanted them to go. And here's another thing that nobody don't know either is the 911 call. When it was called in, as Koski was leaving the scene, that's when the 911 call came in. And as he was giving directions, turn here, turn here, turn here, turn here, the cops was coming the other way. So he was bypassing the
and that
cops.
absolutely makes sense because she gave his sister gave a description of the vehicle or like the last vehicle that she saw near the premises. So Yeah, so they were ended up driving in the opposite direction of where the cops were coming to the house while they were just leaving. And her description of the car is why they ended up showing up at Matthew's house the following day. And from the motion hearings from September and also from this month, November, at least 10 officers testified on the stand. I literally wrote down what they said word for word. All of them said that they arrived at Matthew's house to look for Koski. They tracked Matthew's house down because they saw that the car was parked there. So they were looking for the vehicle, and they connected the vehicle to Koski. That was their prime suspect. That was their assignment for the day. When they were dispatched to go to Matthew's house, they were all told, look for the car and look for Koski. He is a highly dangerous individual. And then there goes when the detainment happened, where Matthew, his mother, Kayla, Brooke, and Jacob Williams were still there. All of them were detained and handcuffed. And the police, just basically raided their whole house trying to look for Koski. And all of those officers said that they were not familiar with Matthew's involvement or lack thereof with what happened at all.
Okay, so till then, the next day, we're still looking at the next day. Apparently, none of the witnesses that were in the house, because Koski is who they're looking for, right? Has even put Matthew around the crime scene yet. The only way that they're affiliated is because they may have left the scene together, right? So now what happens when how does Mathew get implemented in this whole ordeal? How are they like all of a sudden, how does it turn from Koski to Mathew, you have the right to remain silent?
It seems as
Kalyn,
though
I'm gonna let you
Sergeant.
go ahead. Go ahead. I was gonna say something, but go ahead and answer that. Then I'll say what I gotta say after that.
It seems as though Sergeant LaCroix, and this is also per his statement when he testified a few weeks ago on the stand at the motion hearing, that he spoke to Jacob Koski's sister before arriving at Matthew's house, because he said he was told by her that if she had to guess, it would have been Mathew in the house with Jacob. So it seems as though he already had an idea of Mathew being a part or being near the crime scene before he arrived at Matthew's house. When he arrived at Matthew's house, he was there when he was handcuffed. He walked, he was a witness to him being unhandcuffed for a second so he could go into the house they had a dog situation when they were trying to look through the house. The dog started getting kind of rowdy. So they asked him, Mathew, can we unhandcuff you, bring you into the house, detain the dog, and then come back? So he was present for that. And after everyone was unhandcuffed, he made a beeline to Mathew. Detective LaCroix, Sergeant LaCroix, did not talk to anybody else. He did not interview anybody else on the premises. Kayla, Brooke, and Jacob were still there. He went straight to Mathew to ask him questions about Jacob. So that also led to Mathew being taken down to the station to make a formal statement. So yeah.
Do you think that, in your opinion, Angie and Kalyn, you as well, do you think that even if someone gave a statement saying, look, I know it wasn't Mathew, even that was in the car, do you think they would have still said Mathew Baker did it, the law enforcement? Do you guys still believe it would have been those murders would have been pinned on Mathew Baker?
Yes, I do that. I do, because everybody can say it's not true, but it is. You just gotta look. If they follow the Innocent Projects, if they looked at all the cases that you and Demita and every other reform that is trying to help people that's falsely incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
If they look at all statistics, it affects the Black community a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you don't have biracial children, you don't know what that means. If you only have white kids, you don't know what that means. But when you have biracial children, your children are considered Black no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I'm considered Black no matter what, even though I'm white in the Black
Mm-hmm.
community. I mean, the white, just because I choose to have biracial children. That's just the way it is. Um, yes, because they want somebody to pay for it. Um, they didn't really know the whole background of Koski, but they know he was somewhat mentally ill. And these are four white kids in a very racist town. We can't just let the mentally ill person go down for this. So we have to make sure that we tackle somebody else, and it just happens to be Mathew.
Wow.
I also
That's
think that because not only because of his race, but also because the investigation, I mean, I can't really determine if it was a thorough investigation if they haven't found anything to pin on Mathew, physical evidence to pin on Mathew, and somehow he's still being held accountable for this. And additionally, his attorneys asked Sergeant LaCroix on the stand, can you specify when in Mathew's statement in your interrogation, when did he incriminate himself? When did you decide that he was no longer a witness, but a suspect? And it wasn't per Mathew's statement. It was per Jacob's statement in which he found him guilty. And he said that Jacob told him that he told Mathew that everybody in the house was going to get it. And I guess because that sounds somewhat violent or somewhat implying of like, you know, intent to do something, and because Mathew still met him at the house, he decided that he was an accomplice. However, I just spoke to Jacob and I asked him about that statement in particular, and he said that wasn't what he intended. First of all, he didn't tell Mathew that. He told Brooke that everybody in the house was going to get it. And what he was implying wasn't killing people, it was taking their money.
Oh.
So now, also, for like, I mean, his interrogation has to have a recording, it has to have a transcript as well, it has to have a written statement as well. And none of that has been brought up in court yet. So I personally, like, when I write stories, I have to have at least like 2 or 3 people to say this was actually said, before I go on the he say, she say, because that's usually how things get mixed up in translation. The only
Absolutely.
time that I've heard that statement come out of anyone's mouth was out of Detective LaCroix's mouth. So I haven't heard Jacob's formal statement or his original statement saying what he said to Mathew, what he thinks he said to Mathew, or what he said to Brooke. So when I just followed up with him a day ago, he said that he did say that, but he said it to Brooke, not to Mathew, and that he wasn't implying that he was going to kill people. So this connection of Mathew still met with Jacob after he said something incriminating now doesn't make any sense because we're back to square one. Mathew still didn't know what was going to happen when he got to the house. So
I've heard. I met with Matthew's attorneys, and I have seen Koski's interrogation. I can't quote word for word everything because this has been a little over 2 years ago when I watched it. It's been over that. It was way before, probably almost 3 years, because Matthew's been incarcerated now in the county jail. Let me correct myself. In the county jail, not prison, none of that. He's still right now. We are waiting to go to trial. Um, and this was when I met with them. It was before the pandemic. Um, in their interview, it was a 4 hour it was a 4 hour interview with interrogation with Koski. I remember that. The first 3 hours, first 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. It was spent really just watching him and how he was acting inside they had him sitting in the room by himself. I don't know what they were doing prior to that, but he was just in there by himself for a long time. You've seen like 6 different behaviors come out in him the whole entire time that he was in there. Some calm, some irate, some like a child, some like an adult. It was just different things and how he was acting. In his statement, I will say this: he never, um, he never, what is the word I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to, he never indicated that Matthew was his accomplice at all during his interview. He never indicated that Mathew provided him a gun. The detective tried to twist his words and make it like it was my Mathew, and it was. The sad part about it is, I won't say a name, but one of the victims is the one that showed Koski the guns, per Koski's statement. One of the kids that lost their life is the one that showed Koski the guns.
He also testified, Jacob also testified that it was one of the victims who originally showed him where the guns were. And yeah. I don't think that, it didn't seem like he was showing them to, I think it was more of an amusement, more than, oh, like I want you to use these to do something to someone. I just think that it was one of those situations where he was shown them out of amusement, but then he ended up getting an idea from them. But he did testify that one of the victims did show him the guns, and he specified because he.
Oh, I think she lost signal. I'll let her back in. Angie, do you even think that maybe that isn't true? That maybe he himself, since he said that, it's interpreted that he wanted to steal, right? Do you think that it could have been that? And he's just, mental health will make you believe things that aren't true. And maybe he found them and then took that action. Do you think that could be a scenario? She's back.
Hey, Kalyn. Hey. Okay. Ask the last question again, Anna.
Do you think that maybe even, because it was mentioned, and Kalyn, I'll let you finish, okay? Because I know you lost signal there. But do you think that it could be possible that maybe he just said that, and maybe it was him because it was said in the past, somebody's statement, right? Or my understanding is it was somebody's statement that he was gonna rob instead of murder people, correctly? Is that correct? Is my assumption right? Okay, so when this happens, do you ladies think that maybe it wasn't that he was gonna maybe even kill anybody, that maybe no one helped him or nobody saw anything, that he's just saying this? Could it be that these people or that truly it was just him, and because of his mental health he believed that to be true? Because and you said his story has never changed, right, Angie? Because I'm just trying to understand so that they understand how crazy this story is.
No, pretty much I don't know, his story hasn't changed as far as, so I got to be technical about it. His story has not changed on the innocence of Mathew. Like he has constantly has stated numerous times that Mathew is innocent. Mathew didn't know anything about it. And even when he sent Demita and I think Kalyn might have got the same JPay message from him, but he said that he's already took his plea. He's already down the road. He's never going to see daylight ever. And so why does he doesn't have anything to, they haven't made no deals with him or nothing like that. So there's no reason why he should really be fighting for Mathew unless he knows he's telling the truth, basically.
He's got nothing to
Basically.
lose at this point.
Right, right. And he doesn't want to see Mathew go down for something that he didn't do and had no knowledge of. And at first when all this first happened, I was really angry, and thinking, if you're going to charge my son, then the other 3 or other 4 people, they got to be charged too. When actuality, all the charges they did get was obstruction of justice or whatever. But since the last time we went to court, I don't, if the way the law reads, then yeah, that's the way. Then yes, Kayla and Brooke should have charges on them as well too, because Kayla drove Mathew there, and Brooke is the one that was texting Koski. But in actuality, the way the accessory law reads, none of them should be charged with anything. Not Brooke, not Kayla, not Jacob Williams, and not Mathew, because none of them knew what was going on when they got there to the house. None of them knew anything. Only thing they knew was they were just going to pick him up and drop him off because he asked them to come and get him. That's it.
On the
That
obstruction
point
law,
blank.
it's like not the obstruction law, on the accessory law of Georgia specifically, you have to have intent to commit a crime in some way, shape, or form, whatever that looks like, or have participated in that crime in some way, shape, or form, even if it means coercing the person into doing a crime. And I mean, based on what we told you, does it seem like he qualifies for
Absolutely.
accessory?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And Kalyn, with you being a reporter, right, a journalist, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked into the background of that police department as you're writing about the story?
Not yet, because I've been so focused on trying to get all the details of the story. And I feel like as I keep writing and as I keep researching, there's always something else that I need to look up. It's definitely on my list of things to look into, because when I heard that he was almost being served the death penalty, I had to look into Georgia's history of death penalty cases, and I included that statistic in my last report. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but the majority of the men sitting on death row right now are Black men, and they executed someone, I think, just a few years ago. But overall in America, the statistic is always Black men always sit on the bench more. Black men are imprisoned at a higher rate. It's literally in the numbers. So that was one of the reasons why I took it, because I thought, okay, he's 24 years old now. Like, that's a really
Long
heavy
time.
charge to try to take. Not only that, but like trying to give someone the death penalty. It's just like, it's not necessarily taboo because we are in America and it's a thing, but it's one of those like, well, what did he do to deserve death, So I definitely do need to look into the police department, because I mean, it's also just hard to look up information anyway, because in my own experience of trying to get information and trying to get transcripts from courts and other pieces of information to include in my report, they either don't have it because they haven't written down anything, or they just literally just don't have the information at all. And sometimes when I do receive information, I mean, in New Jersey, it's different when you file an open records request, because when you request to get something, it's, a lot of things are blocked out. There's certain information that's hidden and stuff. But in some cases, when I request information, I either get more information than I needed, or I can't get anything at all because they literally just don't have any record of it. So I hope that I can find something in my quest to try to find the history of this department, but I'm not sure I'll be able to find too much.
And I will tell you this, as Angie knows, I live in the neighboring county to where this crime happened at, and I am very familiar with situations such as Matthew's dealing with and Angie's dealing with right now, and that law enforcement in particular. I'm sure you'll find a lot when you're ready. If you need help, I can make sure that I lead you to that information and make sure that you're getting accurate information to give to people. Because I like to do the same thing when I do these interviews, be as specific as possible, and get as much as the facts as we can let out, because there has to be a voice for him. There has to be a voice for all the Matthews in there. And we're not saying that everybody that's sitting in there that's of color is innocent. We all know this. But have you guys really thought, and this is my question to the audience, that many a times it is men of color in there? Do you know how many clients have told me, people wonder where all the Hispanic and Black men are at? We're all in here. And to hear that, it just broke me, because I am a mother. I am a mother of a boy, well, almost a man now, but of a man of color, right? So I think to myself, what if this was mine? How would, and people look at it like that, because you never know what's going to hit home. Look at Angie. Look what Kalyn's having to do for Angie, and I'm sure others, as well as, I go out of my way for these interviews because these voices need to be heard. These voices need to be heard. But I was just having a conversation with Demita at another court that she was sitting in this week. And it was amazing because every person of color, I think there was all Black men there, Black people, she said, and whoever was white, they were really nice to. But she tells me, Anna, anybody who was of color no, they're going to commit this crime again. They need to sit in there. They need to be no bond. And see, these are the laws that I keep emphasizing, and I'm going to make it my mission as a human rights activist to change these laws, for it to be, hey, fair across the table. I don't know how we're going to do it, but hey, if you got an army of 100, and like I say, we vote these people in. A lot of these people we vote them out, because it's more of us than it is of them. Whether anybody wants to believe that or not, it is more of us that want to do the right thing than it is of them that want to do the wrong thing, Now, when he was talking, who was this? I'm sorry, guys, I got distracted here. Angie, what was it that we were talking about the other night? I'm sorry.
The case that you about well, okay, so I don't want to get off subject, but a lot of this, why I'm speaking out about Matthew's case, is because I want people to see the injustice that the justice system is doing. We hear about it all the time. We read about it. We see it in the papers. We hear about on the news, or social media, however, of people hearing of somebody that's been locked up for 20 years, 40 years. They get exonerated, whatever the case may be. But or just like the other day, Julius Jones was fixing to be executed, and the governor would never respond to anybody until the last minute, which is usually how it always happens. So right now, with what's going on with Mathew, is the opening door to revealing how the justice system works. Kyle, whatever his name is
Britain.
opening the door, yeah, to seeing how the justice system works.
Hmm.
Um, White, and he killed 3 people, but he was found not guilty. Mathew is biracial but considered black. Um, there's 4 murders, but he didn't kill anybody. But they want to give him the death penalty.
30 charges. 30
And he has
charges.
30. Yes. So, which I still don't understand that. Um, so he has 4 aggravated assault charges on him, 4 malice murder charges, 12 felony, 2 robbery, and I have no idea where the hell robbery came from, and 4 possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Koski, that has stated he's the shooter, already took his plea, already been sent down the road, has 4 malice, 4 felony, 4 aggravated assault charges, 4 possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and 1 theft by taking charge. Those were his charges. And Mathew has 30.
Is there an explanation as to why, Kalyn? Have you found out anything, Angie, as to
I
why
mean,
one has 30? I mean, this tells you, like, right here, the system that we deal with, you know? Um, 30 charges, and what was the other one? What, 10 charges?
Hmm
Did I
I
calculate?
Maximum
think
of
I think
12.
he had I think Koski had 15, or I think it's 15 because it's 4 of each charge, and then the 1 extra theft by taking because he stole the gun from the house. Yeah.
I've been
But
trying to
the
funnel most of my questions through Angie because no attorney will talk to me because I'm considered media and I'm evil and I twist the story. And no, like I could literally be the best objective writer ever. They still won't just because, like whatever their plan is, they would rather reveal what happens in court. And we saw that with the last motion hearing. Um, they filed a motion to suppress his interrogation statement and the previous statement he made to Sergeant LaCroix when they were standing in his driveway. And we were confused as to why that was because in our head, those statements proved his innocence. If like an objective, unbiased jury listened to both of those statements, they would understand, okay, it doesn't really seem like he did anything. Maybe he was just there at the wrong place in the wrong time. And whenever we asked questions about it, I mean, we meaning I told Angie some questions that I would like her to ask the attorneys, and then she also asked her own questions. She didn't really get a response and was kind of just ran into a circle until finally I went down to Georgia to go sit on the motion hearing myself because they were showing police cam footage. And then when their closing argument came, it became evident as to why they were filing that motion. And it was basically because Matthew's Sixth Amendment and Fourth Amendment rights were potentially being violated during the commission of those statements. So they might not have been given voluntarily because due to the huge police presence, and then you have Sergeant McCoy beelining towards Mathew and saying, I need you to come down to this station. And Mathew didn't really feel like he had a choice. He didn't know that he couldn't, like that he didn't have to go if he didn't want to. He didn't know that he could have called his mom. He didn't know that he could have been represented by a lawyer. And he wasn't told that information either, of course. So that's why they were trying to file a motion to suppress those statements. But all of that to say, we didn't know that until we got to that motion hearing and they made their closing argument. So as much as we try to get information and try to understand what we can and can't know, there's the communication hasn't really been great. And I mean, Angie could tell you about that all day.
yeah, he didn't even know that he was even being arrested, because that was something else that they brought up in court that the DA laid out when she was asking the detective, was when he was filling out his statement, was the door locked? Did he know the door was locked? Was he free to go at any time? To me, I thought they were crazy questions. Like, but now I see how she was trying to lay out the platform
And it was
for everybody
important
to be able to see it. Yeah, it was
because when
important for.
we saw police cam footage of the detainment at his house, but then they showed the actual footage from the interrogation in the interrogation room. And
Hold on, Kaylin, you forgot something important about that body cam
about what?
footage.
The body
The
cam
body
footage?
cam footage. Yeah, it was just presented after 5 years. It was in some and one of the
Yeah, it
officers'
was
night.
handed over in September.
What? Okay. No.
Yeah.
So it was just handed over.
It was sitting in the police officer's drawer, Officer Phillips.
Wow. Um, wow.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow. You guys, this is the system. This is the system. You know, if you turn around and first I want to go ahead and share. Cheryl has a question for you, Angie or Kalyn. I have it on there. If you'd like, I can read it, or you can just respond.
Yeah, Cheryl's my sister-in-law. And I haven't had a chance to update her on what's going on. But to answer that question, um, when you're in the court system and you're having to go through all this stuff, one thing that I've learned with working with Demita and her helping is if something happens in your case and you're going before the judge, it's up to you to speak up about it. And if you don't understand something, then you have to make it known to court. You have to put it on record in the courts. And that was why he was asking that question. When I first seen it and I heard him, I was like, are you serious? Like, why would he ask something like that? And that just to me sounded so disrespectfully. But in actuality, he knows how the court system works because he's been through the court system a bunch of times. He's had multiple charges for different things or whatever. And so for him to say, why are you charging me with 12 murders and it's only 4 bodies? That's a legit question that he really was asking. And they still never answered that. The judge told him that his attorneys would have to explain that to him. And it would be no different than Mathew coming and asking, why are you charging me with 30 charges when I didn't kill anybody? Why are you charging me with robbery when I didn't steal anything from the house? Why are you charging me with aggravated assault? I never had a gun in my hand. Why are you charging me with possession of a firearm? I didn't have the gun in my hand. I never had a gun in my hand. You don't have evidence that I had a gun in my hand. So how can you charge me with any of these charges? Technically that's what he probably should say, but again, he'll probably get the same looks at how Koski did when he asked that question. But you have to make something known in court when you're going through that stuff so it can be put on record so that later on when if you go to appeals or you file you have to if you have to go to appeals process or anything like that, you can file it and it's in an open court.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And please, Angie, make sure that he does do that, or make sure that you do that in writing, or in the state of Georgia. In case many of you guys don't know this, I don't have to let the other party know I am recording. There's recording apps that you could even have on your phone when you have a conversation, or when you are even talking to somebody over the phone. You don't have to let them know I'm recording you. And this can be something that can be used as proof, maybe at a later date. Just keep that in mind. Kalyn, this was made a statement from Brother Jamie Eatman for you. Can you read it?
Sorry, I was muted. If someone pleads, are their charges omitted lawfully? No, I don't believe so. I also have been learning about the law as I've been going with this case. I'm not a law student. I don't study it, but for this, I have had to learn a couple of things. But no, I don't believe so, because if Jacob pleaded guilty, they held him accountable of all of his charges by sentencing him to 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. So I believe that they put that on the table for Mathew, but of course he didn't sign it because he's going to fight for his innocence. And I'm not sure whether the DA is going to continue pushing for the death penalty, because, I mean, when he put that on the table, it was about 2016, 17. And after 2020 and the rekindling of this whole Black Lives Matter push and everything, he might reconsider trying to do that. And realistically, when you really go through all of the evidence and when the judge really sits down, he's probably not going to see a need for the death penalty. He's probably just going to try to put him in prison for something. We don't know what that something is yet, but yeah, no. The plea deal usually means that if you plead guilty, then you're going to have to give time that is warranted, to what I
So
understand.
I also want to let everyone know, and it's just because it's another client I just so happen to have in Henry County. The same DA, and Demita knows about this because I've been having this conversation with her. The same DA has charged a special needs person with a very, very serious crime. And they have the mental capacity of a 3-year-old. And I'm not going to say, and no one says that they're not innocent, that they're innocent or anything. It's just that we have to take in consideration, right? With autism, no speech, certain things happen, and when it's a family matter, it is a family matter. But that'll be maybe something I speak about at a later date. This is another case I do have with the same district attorney in the same county. It's a little bit frustrating when you would give that, and if you look at the kid, first of all, he's got no speech. Second of all, he's Hispanic and he looks black. So he's Puerto Rican, he looks black, and it's just really frustrating that would be the step that would be taken. Next question is, did they reduce his charges? I'm assuming this is Koski. Or is this
Koski's charges? No, his charges stayed at about 15, but as regarding Matthew's charges, he just got reindicted with the double of charges in June. So that just happened.
Next question is, I get it. You said that Koski only had 4 charges, so now I'm confused. So go ahead, you can go.
No, I was just going to say, I believe earlier that Angie said that he was given 15 charges total. I believe that when he asked about the 4 bodies in court, that he was genuinely confused, because he probably thought, if I'm going to get charged for murder, I'm going to get charged for murder, period. He didn't know the breakdown of, you're going to get charged for every body. You're going to get charged on multiple counts for every person. So, yeah.
Cheryl writes, I will never understand how they can charge Mathew and not, at a minimum, the driver of the getaway car that sat at the end of the driveway waiting for Koski. And that was my same question at the beginning. Like, I'm like, no one got charged? Like, not. And you know, what's the worst for me is, if you shoot somebody, let's say me and Angie are together, and me, Kalyn, and Angie are together, and one of them shoots at somebody and it's at pretty close range, there's something that's going to splatter on me. Period. Something somewhere along the line, whether it's a gun residue, whatever, something. Am I right at saying that? Or you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've read in cases.
I think logically that would make sense.
Absolutely. So, you know, um, I asked myself, so how is there no one else in that house accused of anything, but this one kid, because that's what he is, at 24. I have a 24-year-old daughter. You're still a kid, you know? We're still kids at that age. 19, 20, we're still babies. So how do you just turn around and charge this guy with 30 charges? But meanwhile, you got this one with what we said, 15, 12, 15 charges. And then no one else gets charged. You said that they had obstruction is what they gave them as a charge.
Obstruction of justice, and majority of them got off on bond.
Were they,
Well, they
they
all got off. Yeah, I think they all got out with bond, and I don't think that they ever had went back to court for their charges. And with destruction charges, that's a 2-year. I can't think what I'm trying to say. You have a maximum. They have a maximum of 2 years to follow suit with that. So if they want to press, continue to press the charges, they can do that. Well, this is another thing that's kind of really crazy about this whole situation with Matthew's case is, Caleb. It was in September, right after Labor Day. Actually, let me take that back. Let me back up to June when I did my first podcast with Demita. 2 weeks after that, Matthew had a court appearance then, and that's when they introduced, because what we are going through right now with the motion hearings and the Jackson Denham hearing that they did, that was supposed to be what we did in June, but when we went to court, the DA changed everything over, and instead of us actually doing the motion hearing then, that's when they decided to add the additional charges. So that's one, you're unorganized, and how do you just do, and then all of a sudden now you want to do an indictment and a preliminary hearing at the same time. And then now fast forward to September, right after that, that's when they started doing some of the motion hearings and doing Matthew's statement and stuff like that, Jackson Denham hearing. Well, in the middle of court, that's right before the court ended or whatever, that's when they decided to bring Brooke in and indict her for what, Kalyn, did you get what the charges they were indicting her for?
It was the same obstruction of justice charge, but it was because she lied to a police officer. And per her statement, she lied and said that Matthew was not near the crime or there at the time of the crime at all. And I have my own confusions and questions about that statement, as to why she singly specified Matthew in her statement, and didn't, I guess, try to get herself out of the situation and say that she wasn't there. But when the judge read back her statement to her, she said that she denied that Matthew was ever near the scene of the crime or there at all.
Which the way she says, the way she explains it, because I haven't talked to Brooke or read her statement or anything like that. But if all of these kids say the same thing, Brooke, Kayla, and Jacob Williams, if all three of them said that Matthew wasn't there at the time it happened or whatever the situation is, technically, the way I see it, now this is just me, my theory, they're not really lying because they were in the car. They didn't know what happened inside that house. They didn't know what happened at the house. So since they didn't know, they didn't obstruct the law because they had no idea, other than until they get, after they drop Koski off and then get back to the house. Now, whether Mathew told him what happened or Koski told him what happened or however the scenario was. Technically, they were saying Mathew wasn't at the house. They did not know for sure if Mathew saw anything or was there when Koski killed him.
Absolutely. Now, okay. You said a lot of what I was going to ask, Angie. You did as well, Kalyn, because to me, right, how and I'm glad that Cheryl mentioned that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to think like a teenager. Let's go back to the time I was 18, 19, 17, around there. You turn around, someone's committing a crime who's in the car with you. Why are you going to sit there? I don't know anybody, especially teenagers. Y'all know that we're teenagers, or when I was a teenager, I was very impulsive, right? That's what you are till about age 25. What would make anybody think that these kids would have just sat there just waiting, gunshots, let the police come, we got all the time of the day just to relax right here. And come on, it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Like the more and more I'm hearing, because I did hear the story, and from Angie. I met her at a rally, and I actually saw the video because I was driving on my way up, if you recall, Angie. And then after that, Angie and I spoke, and I was like, there's no way, but I wanted to hear more into detail, and I omitted some questions, right, till now, because I wanted you guys to understand this is the system. This is the jacked up system we deal with. You got public defenders, and Angie, please forgive me if you don't agree, but to me, it's the way I see a lot of the cases that I get. Public defenders who are friends with the prosecutors, and they're all friends with the judge. And guess what? The poor one, because I have cases like that, the poor one, the one who can't defend themselves, and the one of color is usually the one that gets jacked up. And that bothers me. And it should bother each of you out there that watch this interview.
An attorney, for me to afford an attorney for Mathew. Okay, so with Mathew's case, it's a capital case, and because they have the death penalty on the table, you can't just have just a regular criminal attorney. You have to have somebody that's death penalty qualified. All that means is that they have an extra year of schooling, and they are able to do, I believe they can do appeals, and there's other motions that they have to file in death penalty cases. So that's why it has to be the specific attorney. An attorney for him is $75,000 to $100,000. Is what I was told. Just to pay for an attorney that I can make payments on, is I would have to come up with at least $40,000 to give them up front. And before he went to court or trial or whatever, the remaining balance of that money would have to be paid off in full. Before his attorneys that he has now was given to us, I called several places just to see if somebody would do a pro bono. It's very rarely that anybody wants to do a pro bono at this time at all, period.
Well, yeah, they just want media attention. They want, let's keep it real, right? Let's keep it 100. If it's something that is something like the case that got acquitted today, they want that. They'll do that pro bono. If it's a R. Kelly case, they'll do that pro bono, because they know what they're going to get at the end is at the end of the day, the props to be able to charge more to these clients. Now, have you ever thought, or has anybody ever thought of doing a GoFundMe for Matthew and specifically maybe having to go to an attorney or something?
Well, I did think about doing a GoFundMe page, and but I was told several different people, and then I even had to mention something to Demita when I first met her. Um GoFundMe, I did not think that at the time would allow you to have a page up for lawyer fees or attorney fees or something like, especially not in a case like this. But one of my nieces has sent me a link that shows on GoFundMe that you can, for attorney fees, have start a GoFundMe for that. And Demita told me another site to go on to. It's called Fundraiser with a Z in it. And if you set that up, that it's kind of like GoFundMe, but it's a little different. And you can go on there and have money. People donate you money and stuff like that. And it's kind of like the change.org. They you fill out you sign it, tell your story a little bit. And I went on there, but it doesn't give you a lot of room to really tell a story. So you have to put in little bits and pieces of basically why you're wanting to do the fundraiser or whatever. And while I'm thinking about it too, so I go into this is how the justice system is or whatever. What I was gonna say earlier is the case of the guy that you're helping that's in Florida and his mom is in Macon. Anytime I hear any of these stories where people are wrongfully convicted, it really touches an extra spot in my heart because I'm going through this right now with Mathew. Um, the
Take
the
your
story
time.
the story that you was telling me, I don't know the guy's name, but it really touched my heart because the mother's dying. So, Anna was telling me about a guy that has been wrongfully convicted, and I don't know what 20 years or 40 years he's been locked up.
He's been incarcerated for 17 years. And go ahead, Angie. You can continue.
So he's been wrongfully convicted and incarcerated. His mom moved back to Georgia and lives in Macon, and because she's sick or whatever. Well, he went through his appeals process or what everything he had to do, and so he finally got granted a release date. And when it came time for them to release him, due to the pandemic, supposedly they lost this piece of paper and cannot find it in the government system. And Anna is an advocate for him, and he has a copy of the paper and submitted it to them to let them know that this was that he was able to come home. Even his mom even knew that he was coming home. Well, they try to say that Anna could have documented those paperwork on her own, which is not possible because anything that you get from the state, any state that you live in that's a government facility that sends you anything out, DFACS, uh, child support, IRS, whatever, it doesn't matter, the post office, any kind of mail that you get that is legal documents from the state of whatever state you live in, it has a stamp on it at the top. There's no way that that can be reduplicated into a system. I don't care if you're the best scammer out there in the world. You cannot do that. It's a special piece of paper that is printed on, and that stamp is on there. There's no way that you can go over that. So now, because they can't prove that or they can't find this piece of paper. Now this guy has to continue to sit in prison and wait until they find this paperwork, and he may not make it home. This
She's right. He did not make it home in time for his mom to transition to a better life. I will tell you guys, it broke my heart. These are the kind of stories here. This is why I do what I do. This is why I'm never too busy to take a call at 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, sick or not sick. This client, I'll say his name, Richard Morris. He is so devastated. His release date should have been July 30th. That's another story, another interview that I'm doing very soon with the family. I'm just waiting for the mother to get the energy because she was devastated. How do you release my son? And he gets his paper, legal mail, might I add, in the prison. And, you know, first of all, let me tell you guys something. We See You Human Justice Organization, aka Lunchtime with Anna, aka Anna Quinones, ain't going to jail for nobody, okay? I'm going to jail for me, my babies, and that better be something that I'm protecting somebody in this household if that's the case, okay? And that's not what you do or or nobody. Why would I do that? You know what I'm saying? But I had to correct them and tell them, correction, no, we're not doing this. You know what I'm saying? And Kalyn, if you'd like to expose that story as well, this happened in Vero Beach, Florida, Gifford, Florida, actually. And so many people of color, it's the same scenario over there. A lot of people just will not live in that area. Vero Beach, I'll just say that's where Michael Jordan has purchased a home at. So you guys can just imagine the difference, right? So Gifford's a small town in that rich town. We'll just say that. So these are the kind of stories that as a human justice leader, sometimes I just can't let down. I'm like, no, I have to continue fighting. And Angie knows I haven't been feeling 100%, but I get up every day and I try to make a voice. This inmate in particular that she's talking about has even gotten stabbed. Can you imagine being innocent, trying to get home? All you want to do is get home. Been fighting this case, same thing as with the Mathew Baker case, all these conflicting stories. In his case, like I told Angie, it was, if you guys remember back in the 90s, 2000s, the guys would wear a white tank top or a white t-shirt and blue shorts, especially in the South, with their sneakers or whatever. How is it that you are sitting in jail by hearsay, somebody saying they saw a black man with a white t-shirt at a bar? Really, it was like a bar, a hangout bar, you know, and I'm sure, Kalyn, you know what I'm talking about. And Angie, when we were younger, they would have where everybody would hang out, the cars would all be outside, I forget what they call it now, and everybody would be hanging out. How was it just the one black man and and blue shorts? I'm like, when I started reading this case, I'm like, they knew this. And you know what's worse about it? The public defender that took that case, they saw the case on the box, and they told that public defender, you go ahead and you take that case because we're throwing away the key anyways. That's what they said at the office. Never had done a case, and which makes me wonder if that was even legal for her to take that type of case because she had just graduated. So guys, it's serious. It's serious. It's not a joke. These are real cases, real men of color. I got Hispanic people. I have Black folks. I even have Middle Eastern. Okay, it's not a joke. You don't want your son being the one or your daughter being the one hemmed up. Okay. So, Angie, I want to ask, since Koski has been in prison, no, I'll ask it this way. Since Mathew has been in jail, in county jail, awaiting his trial, how has his behavior been? And if you know anything about Koski, if you can tell that as well.
I don't know anything about Koski. Like I said before, I never met him before. By this whole situation and listening to his 911 call when he called in, really tell you the truth, I think Koski doesn't deserve to be in prison. I think he needs to be in a mental facility somewhere getting some help, because once again, the system has failed him. The system has failed him by not getting him proper treatment. He he didn't ask to be born with a mental disorder. He didn't ask to be born with schizophrenia, bipolar, ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to label him as having. And I personally think that the way the court system reads of saying that he was mentally insane, I think that was really not. I don't think that he should have got mentally insane. Mentally insane is you saying that you just flipped out and just did something out of anger. I don't. I think under a mental health, if mental insane falls under mental health, then yes. And if that's the case, then the facts are it's you're contradicting yourself, because you just sent him 4 life sentences for mentally being mentally insane, but you send him to you send him to prison, not a mental hospital. So that's there again. If when you go to court, if you're going to be technical and they're going to do this and they're going to do that, we'll be technical when you give people their sentences. Um, Matthew.
Angie, real quick, because I talked to Demita about Koski before, because there was a period of time when we couldn't get in contact with him, and it was actually because he's had a few violent outbursts, including stabbing someone while in prison. But to still piggyback off of Angie's point, um, prisons were originally supposed to be rehabilitation centers. And we know, obviously, that there's nothing rehabilitating about prisons. If anything, they drive someone to their worst state. Look at Khalif Browder. So I think him being there is escalating his mental illness. And of course, if he has an outburst, their way of, I guess, keeping him in line is by putting him in like a cement box with no windows, and probably injecting or giving him some type of medication that isn't really like meant to help him. So I do I do think that, I mean, he needs to be given some type of treatment, but once you're put in prison, there's almost like no regard for your life or your health anymore, because everyone who's put in prison is kind of just treated like trash and treated like they're, you know, capable of everything that they're accused of, then some, and also just not even treated like human beings. And that's why there's so many like nationwide protests going on at the moment against prisons, because of the conditions that they're living in. I mean, even just having to wake up next to a deceased body and no one does anything about it, and they don't care if you get sick, and they don't care what happens. Like, it's just, it's so disconcerting. And that is also the reason why the push for Mathew was so strong, because we told him we would rather you take the risk of getting new counsel and waiting a few more years in county than having to spend your life in prison. Because at that point, I mean, he'll already need support when he comes home, but if he goes to prison, it's like there's it's almost like you just hope that you don't end up losing who that person was after they go.
Um,
Angie, if you could answer, I'm sorry, I'm going to mute you because it's got an echo, it's got feedback. Quick question. How has your Matthew's behavior been since being in there for the last 5 years? As you guys see, she said he's had outbursts. And again, I want to make one thing clear. I'm a huge advocate for not having people with mental health issues in there. That's not the place for them. They should not be in jail. You should be in a mental hospital is where you should be, where there is that correct care for them, right? How has your Matthew's behavior been? You can go ahead and mute yourself.
um, just like anybody else, he takes it day by day. Of course, he don't really get in deep um conversations with me about how he day to day what he sees in there and things like that. He tries to shelter me a lot from that, but for the most part, he has a lot of faith. His spirits are pretty much good all the time. He still, is the same Matthew. He laughs, jokes, and Kalyn had a chance to hear a couple of his little, goofy things or whatever. He's still my Matthew. There are days, I think, when times get really bad for him is it um holidays, birthdays, somebody passing away, and that's the hardest for me. Holidays, I mean, I still miss him, but I have a lot of faith that I know that in God's timing he's gonna come home. When that's gonna be, it's gonna be on God's timing. But I know he's gonna come home soon. Um, but I have to tell him that somebody's passed away, that's the hard part. I don't like doing it. So I haven't never told my other son that I kind of want to leave that up to him to do, because they have an unbreakable bond.
And Kaylin, that you know, has Matthew been in any sort of trouble for the last 5 years since sitting in county jail?
No. The only thing that I've heard regarding him in jail and his experience is it's never been anything that he's done. It's always been things that happened to him. Like he had an incident where there were rocks in his food and he was chewing and he chipped his tooth, and it took him a while to get to the dentist. He had another problem with his foot. He had something going on with his toe, and they were just procrastinating getting him to a doctor to get it checked out. Um, Things like that, like negligence that can be expected. Um, and recently, there was a guy who was put on this like manhunt for shooting an officer, and he knew Matthew. And just because they knew each other, they like stormed his cell and woke him up in the middle of the night, asking him questions and demanding like, "Where is he? Do you know where he is?" But of course, he didn't know because he was in jail for the past 5 years. So like even if he was in communication with this guy, he didn't even have any idea where he would be going or where he would be running off to. So that's all I really know of. Other than that, I feel like from the feedback of not only security guards who were there, but also inmates who have, or individuals who were in jail with him and then also came out, they speak very highly of his character. They just say that he's such a gentleman, he's such a proper young man, and that he really is faith driven, and he just minds his business. And it's kind of like a relationship that he has with the older inmates in there where they're all kind of rooting for him to get out. And they're all, every other day they'll be like, Matthew, why are you still in here? Like, when are you going home, kind of thing. So, yeah.
At first, when he, of course, at first when all this first happened, of course, everybody has their own opinions and stuff like that. But since me doing my first podcast and um just how everything is gone now, I hear from Matthew. There's a lot of officers in there. And I have some friends that work at the courthouse. And they know a few people that work at the jail. And a lot of those officers in there want to see Matthew go home as well. They don't understand why he's there. They have, said, you ain't went home yet. You're going home. They need to let him go. Even one lady that's in there said that she's met Matthew and she just don't. She's heard the story. She's heard me speak. She's heard me tell the story or whatever. And she said that she passed the word on that I needed to keep fighting for him because he don't deserve to be in there. And I brought Kalyn on tonight because, of course, she can articulate a little better than I can. Um, I do want to tell Matthew's story, but I always want to have somebody behind me telling the story as well because I want people to really listen and believe this story and see the truth in this story. And I can't do that alone because I'm his mother. So everybody is going to think that I'm going to be partial to him anyways. When even though anything that they want to know can go to YouTube. You can type in Matthew Baker or Jacob Koski, and you can look at all the news clippings. You can look at the court proceedings that we've just went through. If you go to Henry County Superior Court, they're on there. So anything that we've discussed tonight or anything that anybody wants to know, they can go on there. Those court proceedings are on there. Another thing I will ask is so this has made it all the way to Texas. Somebody made a change.org for him and attached Kalyn's first article to it. So I will ask everyone if they will go to that change.org and sign the petition, share it on social media, Twitter, however you want to share it. And the more you share, the more you continuously share it, the more it continuously gets people to sign it and it boosts it up. And that will definitely help Matthew when he goes to court. Within I had started it, but I never got a chance to finish it because we had a court. We had to do something with court or whatever. So I was working with Demita on his court appearance. So between working my regular job and then working with going over things with Demita about Matthew's case, I just there's not enough hours in the day that I had to go back and try to finish doing the petition. So when I seen that this lady had done the petition, it was I think I found out about it in September, and it had already been up for 4 months. And when I first found out about it, it was only 460 something signatures, and within a month we got up to 40,000 signatures. So that says a lot itself with just people reading the article and sharing it and stuff like that it's gotten around. So this last time we went to court, I really wanted to have 50,000 signatures by the time we went to court, which we didn't make that goal, but it's okay. I'm pushing his petition, and I want to get as many signatures on there as I can to make this go as viral as I can, because this does affect a lot of lives, not just the Black community, but anybody that's minority it affects, and it's real. And it just seems like there's nothing that we can do to change it other than do what we're doing right now and being the voice for them, because they can't be their own voice right now. Um, The whole situation is a sad situation. My heart really goes out to the victims' families. Um, One thing that I wish that all this could out of out of this, not only wishing the truth be revealed to them so they can have some closure, but I do want to change the law of the death penalty because I don't feel like whether somebody is guilty or not, I don't think anybody deserves to have um, lethal injection. We're not God. We didn't. We don't. God didn't choose. God is the one that chose when we were born. God chooses when we die, not us. If it's wrong for me to kill Kalyn just because I'm just angry and just want to kill Kalyn, then it should be wrong for Anna to kill me because I killed Kalyn. It's not an eye for an eye. I can speak about this because I've had anything that you can think of has happened to our family of whatever reason why it would justify somebody getting a death penalty. We've had somebody in our family, several people, well, two people rather, being killed by gun violence. We've had somebody in our family been raped. We've had somebody in our family um, be molested as a child. So, and these are people that's close to me. And if I have been through all of that and I still feel the way that I feel, then that's the way other people should feel too as well. We are not God. We cannot choose the destiny of another person whether they should live or die by their crime. A sin is a sin, regardless. If I steal a pencil from Kalyn and Anna kills Kalyn, it's the same sin in God's eyes. The way that this Constitution is written is we're one nation under God. And if that's the case, then God is the one that has to say that when our last day is. The way the law reads, we're innocent until proven guilty. That's a lie. You're guilty until you're proven innocent. It's it's not the other way around. The only way that any of this can change is if we go by the Constitution and we stand up as one nation and we fight against the government and let them know this is what cannot continue to happen. And what you were saying earlier, Anna, when you said you want change in laws and what makes things equal, right now would be the best time for everybody to jump on board. I wish that I knew how to change a law. I wish I knew the steps into how you can change a law. Because if I knew the steps in doing it, I'd be on it like ASAP. With okay, so Juneteenth was just legalized. I really believe they did that because of George Floyd and the Black Lives Movement. But if that's where we're going with it, then here goes the law that it needs to be changed. Every single law has a maximum year amount of time that you are supposed to get. If you get murder, it's supposed to be whatever, what, 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years is what the maximum is. If you do robbery, if you have armed robbery, each one of those crimes has you can get up to the maximum amount of years. Well, if that's going to be the way it is, then they need to get one number and leave it at that number. And it needs to be across the board for no matter whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, Asian, whoever. It doesn't take somebody your first time going to prison. It doesn't take you, no matter what the situation is, whether you stole a pencil or you killed somebody, it doesn't take you 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 25 years to actually know that you did something wrong and learn from it. We don't never know what that person is going through, why they did what they did, or whatever the situation is. So if they killed somebody, yeah, and in most people's eyes, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, you deserve to be in there. You deserve to be in there for 25 years." Okay, that's why we go to court. That's why we figure it out. But what's the purpose in going to court and trying to figure it out if this is how the court system is going to operate? You don't get the truth. There is no justice. You can't, justice is not for the victims. Justice is for the justice system itself. The victims think that they're getting justice, but they're not getting justice. They're getting tricked, just like the people that are in there for the crimes are getting tricked, just like you're getting tricked by your court appointed attorneys. This is why they say that the court appointed attorneys work for the court system. Well, when I asked Matthew's attorneys that, they got an attitude with me. Like, really wanted, if they could call me the B word, they probably would have. If they wanted, they could fight me in the courtroom, they probably would have, because I really disrespected them when I said, "Are you really going to fight for my son? Are you working for my son, or are you working for the DA?" You know, I hear the stories about court appointed attorneys all the time. Oh, well, what do you mean by that? It ain't what I mean by that. It's just I'm asking a question. Like, I need to know this. This last time we was in court, things are a little different. I don't know, whether I'm hoping going forward that they're going to fight for him or whatever, but this is an everyday, this happens all the time all over the United States. And it's sad because it just seems like there's nothing you can do to change it. But it is something we can do to change it. But we all have to be on the same page. We have to vote out the people that are not us. We have to go to city council meetings. We have to make a issue within our county that we live in, going to these and talking about people. Reach out to, who are politicians and congressmen and things like that, and write to them. Look, you're worried about making money for the school system. You're worried about doing this for, giving teachers more money. Where is there any kind of something that we can do for justice reform? You know what I'm saying? What is it about that you can change about the laws? Look at how the system is running now. You know what I'm saying? There's a way that we can do it, but the only way for us to be able to do it is get out there and be the word or voice our opinions about the situation. But we have to come together as a complete community and do this, because and not wait until the last minute when there may not be a last minute. Anna, Kalyn, well, Kalyn, I don't know what happened to Anna.
I don't know either. But I wanted to add to your point about whether the attorneys are fighting for Matthew, and state that Matthew said out of his mouth that the last time, or at least to my knowledge, the last time that they spoke with him, they said that a win for them could be getting him at least life in prison. And I don't, well, I'm not sure, how attorneys work, because I'm not an expert at law or anything, but I just, looking at everything from the case, it seems like they could do more for him than just settle for life in prison, because it might seem better than the death penalty, but life in prison and the death penalty might as well just be the same thing, because prison is basically like sending someone to an actual hell. And in the South specifically, the prisons, especially for Black men in the prisons, it's just an awful, awful, awful experience.
Yeah, I don't understand that whole concept when they said that either. Um I mean, I used to work for the justice system. Not justice system. I worked for the Department of Corrections. Let me correct that. I used to work for the Department of Corrections years ago when all of my kids were really small. And when I went in, I did two interviews with them. My first interview, I got hired, and then while I was working there, I wanted to move up. And Cheryl, I'm gonna comment on that. I'm glad that you said something about that. So the second job interview, I wanted to move up, so I had to do the same interview. And one of the questions they asked me in my interview, you go before a board, and the whole board people has to do an interview. It's not just one or two people. But they asked me, the question was, why did I want to work for the Department of Corrections, and what did I think the Department of Corrections stood for, and for me to give an example of what the meaning of justice means. So I said, well, Department of Corrections stands for correcting a problem. Well, are we correcting a problem? No, we're not. They're making a worse problem. You can't, if it's inhumane for a dog to go to a dog pound and be locked up in a cage all day long and have sit and poop and pee, and you have to go in there and clean it out every day because obviously they can't clean it up themselves because they're dogs or animals, whatever. And you got to take care of them. But if I had a kennel place that I was running and all the dogs was in there just sitting there and poop and pee, I'm going to jail. I'm going to prison. That's inhumane. You're giving me the maximum amount of time that you can give me. That's a dog. But it's okay for humans to go to prison, be locked in a small little cell, cemented walls all the way around them, 21 to 22 hours a day, barely eat enough food that's really going to be any kind of nourishment to them, be in overcrowded jails, overcrowded prisons, like Kalyn was saying earlier, dead bodies laying around everywhere, being contacted with people that has COVID when you don't have COVID. Let's see what else. Abuse, killings, officers killing inmates and getting away with it. But that's okay. That's okay. We're human, so this okay.
And I want to add to that, Angie, I'm going to mute you briefly so that we don't have feedback. But I want to add to that. There's actually been, how is it? And these are actual cases that I have, you guys. I mean, these are clients of mine. How could you get a charge for contraband when there was a COVID restriction? Not one family member or friend was allowed into the prison. How's that contraband getting in? Something I want the public to think about, because these are things that a lot of times the public is like, but how? Yes, it's the correction officers that work there. And I'm sure Angie is very familiar with that, because the corruption in there, it's worse than the mob. And let's say how it is. It's worse, from what I've understood, than the mob. How are you getting, because I actually had to stick up for an inmate, and I'm like, okay, I understand that maybe this was around the inmate. Okay, that's fine. But how did that contraband, don't you think your prison needs to do an investigation, because the contraband is still going in and there's a pandemic going on right now? Again, it's not about guilty or not guilty. You sat here and gave that inmate and whoever else a charge, but what about that CO that brought it in? Because it had to be a CO or somebody, a medic, had to be, because that's the only people who are in there. See what I'm saying? Or the warden. I doubt most wardens are going to do that. They have too much to lose. But that's what the kind of cases that we have. That's the kind of stories I hear constantly. Angie, I would like for you to respond to this. if you don't mind.
Yes. Okay. So that's something I've been asking from day one since Matthew got his attorneys. Um, the answer I always got was in due time we'll file that motion. Okay. A year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years go by, 4 years go by. I ask again, when are you going to file the motion to remove it out? Um, when are you going to file the motion to remove it from a change of venue? So one of his attorneys, the conversation that we had was, well, when it's time for us to file that motion, we'll file it. But here's the thing, though, Miss Lanier. Um, we have to find a county that has the same ratio as the county that you live in, and the way the jurors are, they're going, or the way the courts is going to present to the jury, they still could probably find Mathew guilty. Okay. So my response to that was, I really don't get, I don't care. I don't give a shit. I would, me personally, being his mother, I would feel, I'm not going to be okay with a verdict of guilty at all, because there's the evidence here is there's no evidence. So it's plain to see that he's innocent. It's plain to see that everything in the situation it's just wrong all the way down. There's nothing that puts Mathew being guilty, period. And even the person that actually did the killings is telling the court system that he's innocent. That's telling his attorney, he fought with his attorneys for so long and kept telling them to talk to Matthew's attorneys and tell them, let him out, even to supposedly sign his plea agreement. And with this is something we haven't seen in his plea agreement. Um, one of his stipulations was for them to release Mathew, but we haven't seen that yet.
Jacob was under the impression that by signing his plea that Mathew would be let go. And he stated that since 2016 multiple times. Additionally, he told me that Mathew's attorneys paid him a visit after his sentencing in April of 2019 and were asking him, pegging him questions about what was Mathew's role in this case, what was Mathew's role. And he basically told them like he didn't do anything. And then they asked him to just say that he knew about the murders before they were going to happen. And first, Miss Angie told me that, and I had to get a second opinion. So I asked Jacob himself and I said, do you recognize these names? I gave him the names of the attorneys. And he said, yes, I recognize those names. This is when they came to visit me, and this is what they said. And it's frustrating from my standpoint writing a report, because it's never like I can confirm any of their words with them, because they'll never talk to me. I sent them a few emails first when I first took the case, and I didn't get a response, which is fine. But I think it's different to not respond to Angie, the mother of their client, when she just asks honest questions, talking from a regular citizen standpoint of, I don't really know much about what's going on in the court and what's going on with this case and all its technicalities. But yeah.
Every time I hear more about this case, I'm more like, wow. Because seriously, and you guys, there are a lot of cases like this, again, of people of color in the system. Trust me, I get them. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll read some cases because I'll ask anybody and everybody for the disposition. If I notice you're withholding stuff, I'm not going to push because I can tell. And that's one thing that Angie knows. I guess Demita's the same way, and me and Demita have a lot in common at the way we go for things as human justice organization or activists. We like to read everything. We like to put ourselves in the situation. And even if people are guilty, this is about your rights. There is a constitution, and I recommend that every single soul out there start teaching it to their young kids at a very, very young age, because it's not long. It's not long. And then start trying to work on those bills. And Angie, when you were talking about changing laws, I can help you with those steps, because I'm involved with a lot of special needs support groups as well. And we do stuff like that. So I can help you walk through that in the state of Georgia. And I can connect you with people, because you just have to find the right. Remember that all of these people we put into office, and if they're not doing for you guys or for all of us, right, as the people, we the people, if they're not doing that, y'all cause commotion like my country did in Puerto Rico. We did it. The I don't know if you guys remember this, like 2 or 3 years ago, the governor had to go. Come to find out, a lot of those chats were fake of what was being said. But the people of Puerto Rico, we the people, US citizens, were not having it. And they would not give up until he decided to resign. And that's how you do things. You have to, in numbers, we make change. And again, like I mentioned, it's not to say that everybody, because sometimes I'll read cases and I'm like, I know this person's guilty. They're telling me they're guilty, but was the crime really worth all the time that they're sitting in there? Was there really more to this story that's not being dissected? Because I can very easily look at cases and be like, guilty, 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 guilty. I'm not looking. I'm not going to read, and I'm not going to look at it from a third party where I'm not being biased. Kalyn, you as a journalist, and I know you have to probably put yourself there too, where you're not looking at, is this person guilty? Is this person, you just kind of got to go in third party, unbiased, and just read it. And just tell yourself, I'm not, and then just start writing. I'm not sure how you do things, but I start writing, and I start writing on this side because I want to put everything together and be like, wait a minute, actually, this person's not guilty. That's how I break it down when I take cases. And that's why I ask. Every one of my clients will tell you, yes, she asked me for a disposition or something out of the case. In the case of Mathew's case, it's real funny how you cannot get any information, so they all have to sit in court. Kalyn has had to sit in court. I know Demita has had to sit in court, and Mom has had to sit in court to find out more things. And that's ridiculous. Ladies,
I'm the one that told them about his extra charges. They didn't even know about that. I got a letter in the mail like a week before we went to court, and I sent them an email and I said, what the hell is this? I said, so y'all wasn't going to tell me that they added extra charges to Mathew? And they had no idea that they had added the extra charges had been added. And so we went to court, and the DA is the one that wanted to do the indictment of the extra charges and the arraignment hearing. That's when Darius Patello, Matt, now this I was pleased about, because they did stand up for Mathew then, and they said they didn't want to do the indictment or the arraignment hearing at the time because they had not had chance to file any motions or even look over, and they had no idea that any of the additional charges had been filed. So Darius Patello told them in the court that yes, they did know that there was going to be additional charges that would be filed, because that was during the pandemic. That was something that they had discussed if Mathew didn't sign the plea. So that basically is saying even though he didn't come out and rightly say it, you're bullying my child to sign a plea for a crime he didn't commit. And Matthew, when they went, they have offered him this plea agreement several times, which the plea is life in prison without parole. That's the plea. So what are you giving me? I'd rather take my chances and get the death penalty if it was me. But Matthew's statement to me was, Mama, they're trying to take everything, my whole entire life away from me. He said, I didn't do this. I didn't know anything about it. I'm not guilty of what they're trying to charge me. So if I have to die for what's right, then now I'm taking it all the way to trial. And every podcast I've done, every time I've spoke out about it, uh oh, they even said something the last time we went to court about all the me trying to make this go social media as much as I can is not good for Matthew. It doesn't look good for him as far as picking his jurors. And I said, oh, and y'all think that staying in Henry County does that? So you're telling me because I'm making this go as social media as I possibly can, but it's okay for it to stay in Henry County.
But if you consider Ahmaud Arbery, they're still picking his trial, I mean, his jury for his trial against them, his murderers. So when you think about how widespread his name was during the Black Lives Matter rekindling of 2020, Matthew's name is still bouncing around here and there. I guarantee that there's a county in Georgia that isn't too familiar with what's going on. So the whole, oh, it might hurt picking his jury, I don't really buy, because there's ample time for us to still get him viral. And we haven't reached, I don't think we've necessarily reached viral yet. We've gotten his name in circulation, but if they can pick a jury for Ahmaud Arbery, then I think that they can find one for Matthew.
I agree. We should make all of these podcasts, all of them, as viral as possible. As viral as possible. And I am only saying this because they're trying to narrow down. They're railroading him, is what they're trying to do. They're trying to railroad him because there's a certain group of people that might not follow Lunchtime with Anna, or might not follow Kalyn, or might not follow Angie, but they might follow Tom down the street, who I just so happen to share this podcast somewhere where it's people that would more than likely be chosen for that jury. See what I'm saying? This is the importance of you guys standing up and sharing and sharing and sharing and sharing. I could care less because I'm still going to be doing my stuff. I've continued doing. As you guys know, I'm an actress, I'm a model, I'm a pastor. And Angie, I wanted to tell you, I'm a pastor, I'm an ordained pastor. And anytime that Matthew needs Anna, I will gladly reach out to him, of course, with yours and his consent. I don't like to overstep my boundaries. So I will gladly reach out to him. And if at all possible, I will go visit him if they're allowing visitation. I'm not sure with COVID because it's different in every county. It seems like every prison and every county jail is different. So I will gladly go and spend some time with him and speak with him. And of course, lift his spirits because it's got to be hard. And I want to ask Angie and Kalyn, you may be able to answer. How has he been? Like, okay, so I asked myself, what if something, I saw that, right? I'm sorry, I would have anxiety and PTSD and all kinds of after effect, not to mention the trauma from having to sit in county for 5 years. So what do you ladies gather is his feeling on all of that, or mom?
Um, it's hard to say right now because he's so strong right now. I think the and I think this goes for I don't remember the guy's name. I was reading the article the other day, and I think this just goes for anybody that or mostly anybody that knows that they're really truly innocent. They have a different fight. They have a different strength. Most of the time, anyways. For Matthew, he really tries to stay really positive. Um, he even puts me in check when I get angry and I get frustrated. And I go fly off the handle about how everything is going, about the lies that just keeps bouncing around everywhere, the different stories. Excuse me, and the different stories that keep coming out and stuff like that. He'll tell me, "Mama, chill. It's okay. Mama, it's chill. Just it's okay." He'll tell me, "Pray about it. Just pray about it, Mama." And then, like today, we wasn't even talking about anything. I didn't even tell him I was doing this tonight. And he said something. He said, "Mom," he said, "You know what?" He said, "You know that God can't talk to you unless you read this word." And I said, "What you trying to tell me?" I said, "Is that something that God told you to tell me today?" And he said, "No, I'm just saying, Mama." He said, God can't actually talk to you unless you read his word. If you don't read his word, how are you going to understand when he's talking to you? I said, "Okay, I'll take that." So, and that was just out of the blue. He always quotes the no weapon formed against me shall prosper um over me. There's been a couple of times, so I don't know, something happened a while back, and he was on the phone with his brother, and his brother was, talking to him. He was kind of upset about something that had to pertain to this case or whatever. And he told him, he said, "I understand." He said, I know. He said, "I know you're upset about it, whatever." He said, "But look, this is what you do." He said, "You just go against them and you just keep saying, no weapon for me, no weapon against me, formed against me shall prosper." And then his brother, said, "Yeah, okay." And then he walked away because I guess he was done talking to him or whatever. And he was just so irritated that he really was listening to Matthew, but he didn't want to hear what Matthew had to say. Right after that, Matthew just started talking, and when I tell you the spirit hit me and the Holy Ghost was over me at that time when he started speaking to him. The only thing that I can tell you right now that I know of is God is really carrying Matthew through this whole situation. He's carrying me, even though I do break down, I cry, I get frustrated, I get angry or whatever, but my whole family, from my son to my daughter, he is carrying us, even though I don't know if they see it or they know it, but he is, because we continue to be strong. We continue to try to support Matthew. We continue to try to be there for him or whatever, that when we can. And everybody that God is placing in our lives, like Kalyn and Demita and everybody else that's coming on board, they're seeing it. And the one thing I've been praying for is the truth be revealed. Even though this 2 and almost 3 hours that we've been on here, so much stuff has come out, but it's still confusing story. But at the same time, the truth is being revealed slowly, and I'm know for sure that it eventually will be. because that's what I've been praying for. My family has been praying that the truth be revealed. Mathew has a lot of supporters, a lot of supporters. Um, I'm sorry, I was reading the comment on there. So Jamie Eatman said this needs to expand beyond Angie and Kalyn as mother. Their strength is needed and would be a great asset for others. The day will come where this type of commitment and the monumentum gained to get where the Lord is taking this will empower others and strengthen them. Them seems like a small effort, but when truth and justice is on your side, it is liberating. Yes. Thank you, Jamie.
Um, and now I want to ask each of you ladies. Well, no. Before I do that, part of the reason why we did this interview is because Mathew has another court date coming up. Lunchtime with Anna is asking. I'm asking as a leader, I'm asking if you're able to tune in, because they do it virtually. There, please make it to court. Just share his story. Share his, I think they put it on YouTube, if I remember correctly. And I did see the last one. I was very confused because I'm like, wait a minute, it just didn't make sense what I saw on the stand. So it might, I will forewarn, it might upset some of you when you hear it because it is kind of confusing. And Angie's right. Because even I was like, I have all these million and one questions, and I did speak with her and Demita and got a lot of those answered. I ask of you guys, please watch it. If you're in the state of Georgia, in Henry County, Georgia, or live close by, or just so happen to be there, stop by the court. Hey, like I was telling Angie, and I was talking to one of the girls who does a lot of the public stuff for my organization. Just hold up Matthew's picture. You don't have to say much. She'll know you're supporting her. She'll know you're supporting him. Just go to court. It's not illegal. Just stop by there. Sit by there. Give her a wave. I'm asking that. I'm sure Kalyn feels the same. I'm sure Angie feels the same. Is there anything you ladies would like to add about that? And add, if you could tell the exact court date so that they can share and maybe many of them can go there.
I'll have to come back and thank you, Cameron. I'll have to let you know, Anna. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay. I'll have to let you know exactly if we're going to be going to court on December the 6th or not. That's kind of I asked Mathew and he said no, that we wasn't supposed to be going back. But I thought that's what I heard, that we was supposed to be going back. I know that when they go back December the 6th, it's for them to give the final written of the Jackson Denham hearing. Is that right, Kalyn? Is that how they presented it? It's the final written report of it, or whatever?
They're supposed to present their final arguments on the decision on the motion to suppress his statements.
So we still need the public to go. Even if they don't want Mathew there, the public still needs to be there. Am I right in saying that?
I think any court date that people can show up is useful because it's not a big courtroom yet. And I feel like when it's time for trial, if there's enough people, that it's very important to have people sitting on his side of the courtroom, because since day one, it's always been his side was empty, the other side was full, because everyone thought wholeheartedly that he was guilty of something. And now, I mean, the family members of the victims still show up for his court dates nowadays too. But it's very important to also see that support on his side, because the jury is going to see that when they go to sit and when they go to look at him. So, yeah.
And I also wanted to say something. My heart goes out to all of the victims' families, because at the end of the day, where is the justice? You have Angie, who has lost her son for the last 5 years and hopefully will be home soon. I'm going to do what's possible to share this story, to continue sharing. I really think she should try to do a GoFundMe and ask for as much support as possible with this, and maybe attach a copy to this interview or any other interview where it goes into detail, along with maybe your article, to where she's able to really show, look, my son is innocent. My question to you is, what else would you like to add to any of this?
I would just say, I would like to just amplify a point that you made earlier, where this isn't the only Mathew. There are plenty of other Mathews who are going through, if not these same, very similar situations. And originally, when I got this story, I was still fresh out of college. I just graduated in May. And I researched and researched, and my deadline was coming up short because he had court the following week after I got the story idea. And I literally didn't sleep for at least 5 days just trying to research and trying to put this thing together and trying to wrap my head around all of these different things. And my initial report is very, very objective. Like, he could be guilty, he could be innocent. Now that more evidence has been presented in court, it's I would say obvious that he's innocent. And it's no longer, is he guilty? It's now, he is innocent, and here's all the information to prove that he's innocent. So I guess I would just say, keep, whoever is watching, just keep sharing his story. I'm sure you'll have it linked somewhere. Keep sharing his petition. And, if he ever comes up in a conversation where you're talking about the news or something with someone, just say, hey, have you heard about this guy named Mathew? And I think that's what's really important right now, and what's really crucial is making sure that his name gets some circulation, because I've emailed all of the organizations with the story, not even asking for their help, just saying, can you read this? And a lot of them have turned me down because they've already been so overwhelmed with trying to handle and publicize all these other cases. So now it's really up to just the people on the ground to really push the story and share it with one another. Yes, and if you care at all about justice and trying to flip this criminal justice system on its head, then please definitely share it and keep Mathew and the victims' families and Mathew's mother in your prayers.
Kalyn, before I get to Angie, could you please tell the listening audience how to be able to reach you, how to be able to maybe read any of your articles, how to contact you, period, if they might have a story, or if they just want to follow you on whatever social media, if you could please give that contact information.
Yeah, so I don't really use my Instagram and Twitter that much, but the handle is still the same. It's the letter KT dot acrylic, like acrylic paint. If you type it in, I should pop up. And my bio is the story. If you go to Honeysuckle Magazine and you type in either Matthew's name or type in racial bias, it'll come up. If you type in Matthew's full name, Matthew Baker Jr., into Google, that should be one of the top stories that pops up. And also in his story is linked the petition as well. And I can share with you my email if there's any story tips that you guys want to share. And also my editor as well, because I usually take my stories through my editor. But yes, anything that you would like to try to share with us, any stories and things. There is also a contact form on Honeysuckle Magazine too, and those emails go straight to my editor, and she'll end up funneling them down to me as well.
Thank you for that, Kalyn, because I think it's very important, and I want to thank you. You thank me for letting you come here tonight, but to me, it's like thank you for just being so refreshing. And I stand with women that stand up for everyone's rights, and you're what I call a strong woman with a strong head in her shoulder, and I could just see it. And I just thank God for women like us to stand up and do the right thing. And again, I thank you. I thank you for what you do. And please, you guys, I will make sure that I put up her information somewhere on my page, or if not, we can have Angie comment it somewhere on this interview, or if not, Kalyn herself can put all her information, because I want to I want to educate everyone, right? I want you guys to be able to contact anybody who can help, who will hear your story. I'm going to contact you about a few that I have that maybe you guys might be interested in. Also, Jamie, I absolutely agree with you. And I have told Angie, as I told Versace's mom earlier this week, please, anytime that you want to come up for an update, just tell me, just tell me, and I need 15 minutes or I need an hour. I got to tell you what's going on so that people could continue following this. And I think that's what's going to help. And one thing I forgot to ask Angie, and I want to ask this before, I ask contact information for her. Angie, how was, because you did give some, but who was Mathew? Like, how was he? How did the teachers talk about him? People who have had past dealings with him, what did they say about Mathew?
Um, when he was in kindergarten, he got the Hershey Kisses Award, and the Hershey Kisses Award was because he was the most lovable child in the class. Um, all through elementary school and middle school, he was very loved. Um, my boys, both of them, were pretty popular in school. They were the ladies' mans, if you would say. Mathew was the pretty boy. Um, when he was in church, he was the at one church he was the Chris Brown look alike or whatever. Um, very, very silly. Yes, all those things Cheryl say he is. He is silly. He is a clown. And he still clowns. Sometimes he just has a good sense of humor. I wish that I wish everybody could have been in the courtroom when we went for his bond hearing and heard stories, because there was people in there telling stories that I didn't even know. And they were all like, one story was his adopted grandmother. She was telling about how they went to church um one day, and she has a special well she had a special needs sister. Then this sister had Down syndrome, and she needed help walking wherever she was going. Well, while all the other kids that was at the church had took off running and going playing or whatever, Matthew stayed behind to make sure that her sister was taken care of and she got to the car okay or whatever. So, that was not a problem with him, stopping and doing something like that. Um Matthew doesn't have I don't even really tell you the truth. I know this for a fact. I don't I wanted to I know my I want to say something, but I don't. I always ask before I say it. But the only way that Matthew would be guilty of any of these charges that they're trying to say that he's guilty of is probably, I was going to say probably if somebody was to really hurt me or kill me, then possibly. But I don't even think that he would even be guilty of these charges if that was to happen. Would he be angry? Yeah, he'd be angry. Would he probably think that he might want to kill them because they killed me? Yes, probably. Would he actually act on it? No. I really don't think so. I really don't. Matthew he's too kind-hearted and too caring. About he really cares about people in general. I cannot even tell you how many people have contacted me that's been in there with him and has told me how Matthew has saved their life. One guy, he's actually a Spanish guy. He was just in there for violation of probation, but because his charges that he was on probation was a felony, they had to put him in there with in maximum security or whatever. And he was trying to get a bond, and Henry County kept hassling him about having a bond or whatever. And he it went like 6 months or whatever. Ended up being they ended up telling him he wasn't gonna get a bond. And he had a small child and a wife that was he was the sole provider or whatever. The night that he called me, he got out of jail. He got out on bond eventually. And when he got out on bond, he called me after he'd probably been out for a couple months or whatever, and he said, Miss Lanier, he said, I just really want to call and tell you how awesome your son is. He said, I really wanted to kill myself because I was stressing and I was upset. He said, I didn't think that they was going to give me a bond. I was worried about how my wife was going to be taken care of, who was going to take care of my children. I'm the one I have my own business. I'm the provider of the family or whatever. And here we are jeopardized and about to lose everything. I'm about to lose my house and everything. He said, but when I met your son, he said, he didn't share with me anything of, why he was in there. I heard from other people, he said, but then when I asked him about it, he told me, he said, but he just kept telling me, trust God, believe it, speak it, speak, whatever you're going through into existence. He said, and just watch how God moves on you and move in your life. He said, I'm going to pray for you. Um, I wish I could read the article, but I don't know how to come off of here and be able to read it to you and get back on. But there's another guy that was in there that says that Matthew sings to them every night. And he said it's such a pleasant voice to hear him singing when you're in there. And I've never been to jail before, so I don't know how it's like to be in there. But when you're looking at the same walls every day, I hated school. So if you hate school, just imagine being locked up in that jail every single day and you can't come out. But you have somebody like Matthew singing songs every night so that it can hopefully bring some kind of peace to that the little pod that he's in or whatever. Um I will say this for anybody that's watching. We'd like to have support, love the support or whatever. if anybody does appear in court, um, I'm probably gonna look at you kind of crazy and wonder why you're there and who you're there for, and if you're for him or if you're for the victims' families. If anybody walks up to me, asks me questions, I'm probably gonna not be the pleasantest person, that, or I might be, come off kind of snappy or rude. And why are you asking this? Just because I have to be careful about who I'm talking to, and I have to be cautious of my surroundings, because I don't know who is for the victims' families and who is for us. Um, just like recently, Kalyn knows, we had a lady, because Matthew's attorneys does not like Demita at all. We had a lady that came specifically to this last court hearing that we had. Ended up kind of coming out that she was really just there to be a spy and to see what Demita and Kalyn and myself, I guess, was trying to coax up together, I guess, if you would say, and be nosy and see who Kalyn was, and who and what Demita had going on. So those are kind of the things that we have going on. Which is another thing that I want to point out. If all these people are so worried about Matthew's attorneys, and whether they're doing the job right or wrong or whatever, and Matthew's attorneys are worried about why Demita put something out, or I'm on social media blasting everything, around the world or whatever. If he really was guilty, why would you care? You don't. You care because he's innocent, and he's innocent, and y'all know that Henry County made a mistake, but it's a problem now because we're all speaking out, and you don't want the exposure to come to him, because you know that everything that they're doing is not lining up with what um yes, thank you, Jamie. So but I will say this, if anybody that wants to find updates about Matthew's case or whatever, or keep up with what's going on, I do have a private page set up for Mathew. It's Mathew Baker is Innocent. You have to send you can send an invite to it. Um, and I'm asking. I don't know if I have it set up this way or not. I think I do, but it tells you have to tell me something about Mathew or whatever. But if you want to invite to it, and you send me a private message, and tell me why you're interested in it or whatever, and you can tell me something good that you found out of this case or whatever, then I'll accept you into the on the page. It is a private group. I keep it private because I can handle the negative comments that come at me about my child. I can handle um the really harsh words of he deserves to die in prison. He deserves to die like the victims did. Just everything that can you possibly can think of. He needs to rot in hell. I've read them all, but I don't want to expose my family and my friends to that, and I don't want to expose the other supporters that are supporting Mathew to that, because we come with peace, and we don't want the conflict back and forth on social media, um, badgering different people for their opinions and stuff like that. So that's why I keep the page private. So if anybody wants to follow that, if anybody wants to get more updates about the case, or get on page on the understanding where we are now with it, if you go to YouTube and type in Mathew Baker, there's somebody did a YouTube video of the story that Kalyn wrote, And it's you if you type in why isn't anyone talking about Matthew Baker, it's a 10-minute little video you can watch, and it basically sums it up everything that Kalyn put in her article. It sums it up in a 10-minute video and tells the story layout of where we are right now with Matthew's case. If you start there and then follow back with reading news articles and um, reading news articles and watching the news clips and stuff like that, then everybody will be caught up on the same page. Plus, looking at the lives on the for the when the court appearances. Now they are 2 and 3 hours long. Um, the main one that I mean, all of it's important or whatever, but most people really want to just get right down to the nitty gritty, and they want to hear just exactly like whatever Matthew said when he went. And I think that was, is it part two on YouTube, Kalyn? Does it show? I mean, on the Henry County page, is it? I know they don't have the dates on there like they were supposed to.
I'm gonna send the same email that I sent you with all of the links and the dates. I'm gonna Anna, send me your email and then I can send it to you and then we can put it up.
All right, I thank you. So I just but I'm on. I have Facebook. Anybody wants to send me a friend request, you can. Um, and like I said, that we have the page or whatever. I do ask that everybody do the change.org, please, and sign it, share it as many times. And when you share it on your social media, don't just share it. Put a reason why you're sharing it. That way, when people look at it, it'll make them want to read the article, and then they'll share it. If you share it, multiple times throughout the day or the week or whatever, it can get out there and people can see it more. Um, and then the YouTube video, I was saying you can share that. That also will get it to go viral or whatever. And I think that's pretty much it. I do appreciate you, Anna, very much. Um, and it was so great meeting you at the rally. I was excited about that. I definitely appreciate you, Kalyn, so much. And one thing that nobody knows about Kalyn is actually younger than Mathew. So for her to be doing this article, Matthew's 24, yes, she can actually relate a lot better. And that's another blessing that God had gave us, is because she's so young. So at her age, she can relate more with Mathew and what he would have done or should have done or didn't do or whatever, however anybody wants to say it. But she's close to, so she can actually relate more of what she would do is if she was in a situation like this. And and I really, really, really hated that Demita couldn't be on here tonight, but I really thank God for her. And it just is, and I tell everybody how I met Demita was a true blessing of God, and this is how God works. I was having a conversation with some guy at work I don't know. And the only reason why we were having the conversation was because he was on light duty. And our conversation consisted of, does the bus run right here? And I said, yeah, it does. And he began to tell me a story about his son and why his son didn't have a car and was having to ride the bus to work. And then I just happened to say something to him about Matthew's case. And from there it was, wow, that's crazy. Are you serious? And he was like, wait a minute, hold on. You know what? I know I got to find somebody that can help. Somebody's got to help. Have you called this person? Have you done this? Have you done that? I said, I have done it all. Everything that you're asking me, I've done it. I've done it. 2 or 3 days later went by. I seen him again. He asked me, he said, how's everything going with your son? And I'm thinking to myself, ain't nothing changed since 2 or 3 days ago when I talk to you, but okay, it's the same. And he made a phone call to some guy, and then that's when I got contacted with Demita. So that's a true I won't say love story, but that's how love stories end up falling out or whatever. But that's how we met. So I know it's a true blessing for each of y'all to be a part of my life and Matthew's life. And I hope and I know that one day and pray that y'all will actually get the meeting for yourself.
And I want you to know something. Very glad that Brother Jamie is online today, because he knows how strong my faith is. And just know that my promise to you and to Matthew is that I'm going to continue praying. I'm going to continue doing whatever it takes from this end to help out in any way. And you know this, Angie, and I've expressed it to you. You have my full support. Um, but you're gonna have that barbecue, just like I told my other client that I've grown very fond of, right? Because you talk to them all the time when no one else would hear the story. You actually sat there and you just read the case. That's all it takes. Just read the case. So many people and activists, and it drives me and Demita crazy. They're there for the cameras, and then as soon as those cameras disappear, they're gone. The family doesn't hear from them. I'm the type of activist, and I know this of Demita as well. I love that lady, and we talk often. Um, we want to sit there from beginning to end, and we want to support as long as we can. And so if this is a case that we're dealing with a life sentence, we want to be there for the rest of our lives, so or as long as it takes for us to try to get you out of there, and find something and find a way to support. Again, I'm asking each and every person here watching this, please share. If you know support groups, share. If there's a group in your state, share. If there's a group in your country, share. Because the more people that know, I mean, I was watching breaking news with the acquittal today, right? It was in all these different languages in all these different countries. That's what we need to do for Matthew. That's what we need to do for other cases like Matthew's. So continue sharing, continue getting it out, continue showing support. And like I say, not every person that's incarcerated is innocent. We all know this. However, does the crime really need the amount of time you're giving them? Because I've seen cases where a person will get a slap in the hand and then the next person does the same thing and got 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, some people life, just because they had a hard upbringing. So, you never know what anybody, and I think Angie said that earlier, you never know what anybody's situation is. So let's have a little more sympathy and a little more heart. And she mentioned something earlier about life. And my opinion is not always popular, and I don't stand with what the church does today a lot of times. I think as leaders we should be as transparent as possible to the community, right? I agree with her. I really do. As a leader, don't talk to me about abortion and other issues if you stand with the death penalty, because it contradicts each other. It really does, in my opinion. And I'm not to say, and I've never been in those situations where I am the victim's family. And I pray to God that I'm never in that situation, or that never happens to me and my family has to do it. But one thing I can tell you guys, and I mean this, is that I would please ask my family in life, please don't let them have death. I would have never approved of that, even if they harm me. So it's just something for everyone to think about. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Angie or Kalyn? Oh, and I did add the YouTube that Kalyn sent me, just because I wanted you guys to go through them if you guys could. And I did add those other things as they were talked about. I need the change.org, or if somebody could just put a link on this interview, and we'll share it to as much people as possible. Anything else anybody would like to add before we get off?
I just want to say thank you for this time and opportunity. Thank you for everybody that's listening to Matthew's case and supporting him. Um, Thank you to Kalyn and Demita. Thank you, thank you, Kalyn. She is awesome, awesome. Um, we pray a lot. I know he's gonna come home. Like I said before, it's everybody that hears this story, the first thing that they react to is he's coming home. I've heard that so many times from different people hearing the story. I just actually, matter of fact, yesterday I was at the jail picking up some of his property that he can't have anymore, and I was talking to a lady. She had her great niece there, and she was an older lady, and she was picking up some property for her son, and her son, and his dad was um, arrested for murder charges that they didn't do either. And so I got to witness to them about Mathew and Demita and what I've learned working with Demita. And so I was kind of educating them how she educates me and how Kalyn educates me and stuff. So um I know eventually Matthew's gonna be at home, but I just thank you to all the supporters and the encouragement because it does help out a lot. I don't feel like I'm in this by myself when I see, the support that he has. And that's what and the encouragement, that's what keeps me going and keeping me from bouncing off the deep end or whatever is I know I have to continue to keep fighting for him because that is my baby and I have to do what's the right thing and the right thing is to set him free and um get the truth out there of what happened to these um the victims. That's the most important thing is that their families have some real closure to them because it is just that to me that's important. That's really important because I can't imagine how I would feel if it was the other way around. And I don't know Jacob, and I'm not angry with him. I don't hold no kind of anger towards him because my son is in this situation. Um, and I should because if you are such a heinous and violent person as Henry County's trying to make him out to be, then I should be just as angry at him as the victims' families are because now you've put an innocent person in a situation that shouldn't be there. But I'm not. I'm humble. Matthew's humble. We're grateful and we're very thankful for, you know, what we're going through and everybody that is helping us with this journey right now. So I just want to say thank you to the supporters that we have. I know we probably talk too much, but I just being grateful is most important in life.
Well, Angie, I could have done this 3, 4, 5 different shows, but I felt that you needed this. I felt you needed the time, and I have no problem with taking time to do this because he's innocent. He'll be home. He'll be home. I have faith. He reminds me of a story in the Bible, and I'm gonna send it to you when we get off air, and you'll hear about it, and you're gonna be like, wow, because he's gonna be home with you very soon, and we claim that in Jesus' name. With that being said, I thank each and every one of you guys for because it was pretty steady how people stayed, so I know it caught people's hearts, people's mind, and they felt it. And I thank each and every one of you guys for taking out of your Friday evening to sit here with us and listen to the story. We we want to make sure that you guys share it. We don't want to do these interviews in vain. I'm sure Angie could be doing other things as well as Kalyn, as well as myself, but we chose to talk about Mathew. So let's not let him be another statistic in the system. And please learn the Constitution, learn the laws in your state, learn the laws, learn them. It's not, and you guys will hear from me and Demita very much in the future of plans we have of helping people do this across the nation eventually. So please continue fighting and please share, because his story needs to get out. And Angie, I will do whatever it takes on this end to make sure that they hear the story and that they follow the story. With that being said, God bless each and every one of you guys. Thank you for listening in to Lunchtime with Anna. There will be no broadcast next week because of the holiday. Everyone have a safe holiday. I might do a video briefly wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving. God bless each and every one of you guys, and God bless each of you and protect each other, please. Have a good night. Bye-bye.